Love movies? Hate bad writing? Fear not, the Watchers are here. Join Alana and Rob, a writing duo, as they dissect the latest films with laser focus. They find plot holes bigger than a sequel's budget and unleash their inner screenwriter with some constructive criticism. Expect spoilers, laughter, and language that might make your grandma clutch her pearls. So, buckle up, cinephiles, and grab your snacks. This is The Watchers.
All right, so in the sequence of events of this, and we'll use this word tentatively, movie, Leave the World Behind, is based on a book that I have to assume is better than this. It starts with a family deciding spontaneously to go on a vacation. While they're on this vacation, weird things happen, like a ship loses its ability to navigate and therefore runs into the beach, because ships are known for not knowing how to do anything unless there's a functioning electronic navigation system. After which, during the night, they are approached by a black man and his daughter, and the movie sort of portrays as if they might be some nefarious actors, which it does seem that way. At least I would feel very strange if someone with no identification came to my home, away home or hotel or whatever, and claimed that they belong there. And they end up staying with these people. Throughout the time of them staying together, they slowly start to piece together what's happening in the world around them, and things start to go wrong. More and more things occur, like there are loud noises that go through the air that are really discombobulating. Pamphlets written in Arabic are raining down from the sky. Everyone's in a panic. There are Teslas being grabbed from lots that are just being sent to crash into each other. They see all sorts of madness, the strangest of which by far, and the most unexplained, is animals come to the house and stare at them, which I don't know how the terrorists, these hackers, as we've been told, would have manufactured that. But the family continues to live, these two families continue to live in tandem with each other, slowly learning to trust one another, or not, because again, the movie sort of loses track of itself. But throughout, there is a running theme of trying to watch the last episode of Friends, which is important to the youngest daughter for reasons. And this is a film that sort of ends in a very familiar way, where it's the movie has set up the premise and then proceeds to show all these incidents of rising tension or action or horror. And then at a certain point, just, I guess, gets bored of itself and ends. And this is one of those films where after one of the oldest boy in Julia Roberts' family being the ones that come to stay in this away home, he gets bitten by a bug and apparently contracts Lyme disease and pulls out several of his teeth. That's going to be a problem from him from now on with eating and digestion and everything else. But the movie kind of has a standoff later that is completely inexplicable with another character played by Kevin Bacon to get him antibiotics. This happens at the end of the movie, right on top of the daughter going missing, the younger daughter of Julia Roberts' family. And she just goes missing out in the woods and decides to just go to another family's house that has a bunker, and she finds that last episode of Friends that she had been trying to watch since the beginning of the movie. It seems like I'm describing a bunch of disjointed pieces of information, but I promise you that I am. It's just that's what the movie presented. This is a film that apparently is about the destruction of civilization through cyber attacks and how people must learn to live together in said situation. Now, I'm saying all that with the most generosity possible, as that would be a hard sell to me if you were to genuinely say, okay, well, that is what the movie actually did. And I feel like what it actually did was waste 2.5 hours of my time, but it did so with what I have to assume was an astronomical budget. So let's speak about this film. Initial thoughts. I pass that to you, Rob.
Okay, so my initial thoughts, ignoring the strange direction, musical choices, and actively bad camera scenes and angles, pannings and motions, and all that other stuff. I originally thought they were going to get to a point of something, but it feels like to me that this is a movie that's trying to indicate, hey, this could happen, and then try to leave the rest to your imagination. I don't think they did a very good job of it. And honestly, I don't even think anybody read the movie after it was finished. Like, no one bothered to check over their work. It's really bad. Really bad.
I feel like they did check over their work. I feel like this is the type of movie where the person who wrote it was being almost self-masturbatory in their love of the content. I genuinely feel like a lot of this is written, or though it is based off of a book, if the book is anything like this, I would imagine that this is either written by someone who is very rich or someone who's very out of touch. It is kind of a combination of all of the most sort of unfounded propaganda about what might happen in a cyber attack. It's like, yes, it would be bad if we got hit with a cyber attack. Yes, these things would go down. But to me, it very much rung of the alarm of the Y2K scare of, you know, if the computers don't get the clock set right, then all the computers in the world are going to go down and everything's going to be terrible. And so everyone ran to buy all of the canned food and water and toilet paper they could, because the world was going to end at midnight in the year 2000. And that whole time, knowing what I did about computers, I was like, but that shouldn't break the computer if it doesn't know what time it is. Also, like, farms still work if a computer's broken. Planes still work if the computer's broken. It's just not as reliable in terms of like the readings you're getting. These things still function without computers. Computers just make it easier, and it would definitely slow things down, but it wouldn't, in society, it would just, you know, slow things down for a bit. I mean, it might be worth getting food and water if something happened, because it might be a while before, you know, those shipments are up again, but honestly, it's not the end of everything. And this feels like that kind of panic ratcheted up to 11. And I say it's unfounded in its notion because ultimately what this movie puts forth is that we are just a little bit of rattling away from total collapse. And that as a society, we are so disjointed and distrustful and paranoid of each other that if a foreign group or just independent actors or terrorist group manage to shake our tree a little bit, get a hold of some things, cut off our communications and make everything go wild, that all of society would collapse on its own. No one would be able to do anything, and the whole of the United States would just fumble. Now that greatly overlooks so many things about how the United States government works, about how the United States works, about the vested interests of other countries with the United States who would want to see us succeed, not because we're such good friends, but because we have so much of their money, or more importantly, we are willing to give them money for dumb shit like Gucci bags. There's a lot of moving parts in place that keep America afloat, as you will, as a country that kind of gets away with being the quote-unquote peacekeepers of the world. We sort of throw our weight around wherever we want to, and yeah, we do make a lot of enemies as a result, but we also make a lot of friends. So this movie kind of ignores how important a GPS is to a boat running ashore or a plane crashing into the ground. It completely negates any of the free-thinking people who would not want to see the country fall into anarchy, and just goes, with a little bit of scare, everything falls apart. And that may be true in some cities and in some communities, but for the whole country, I'm sorry, there are just absolutely states in this country that would not notice if the internet went out. There are some that would just go, well, that's annoying, and go about their day. There are Amish countries, and in each of these states, which have different levels of reliance on the internet, each of them has, governor or mayor who is in line for the presidency of the United States, depending on how rough things get. So they were like, oh, the White House is under attack. It's like, yeah, but we have backup people. Like, there's not no one in charge. if you're waiting for communications to get back up, like believe it or not, there are still people who train pigeons. There is communication. So I think this movie banks heavily on the idea that, if once we reveal this thing that has happened to America, you'll understand what all this horribleness is. And in the middle of that, they put on this, and the animals tried to warn us. What? Why? When did animals become a part of that? When did they care? Why would, even if they did have an inside track to what that is, and to the way society is and the way that things are falling apart, why would they go to a random house in the boonies and just stare at people under the idea that it would warn them of what? That you're already under attack? Okay. That you need to go get help? I guess. They didn't show up before the attack started, because apparently it had already been underway by the time that this family, Julia Roberts' family, shows up at this new place. So I have to confess a level of confusion as to what the animals were even trying to do. And then you could even argue that the animals were being absolutely stupid, because apparently they understood the importance of radar and sonar, but not the importance of written communication or doing something other than staring. And they were added as this really creepy and frightening element to a movie that I guess lacked anything that was actually frightening other than not knowing, unsurety. I was at a bit of a loss. So in understanding the way that this film went, and it's step by step and slowly showing the way that there was a loss of communications, it sort of starts off as this film of, this foreign element is in this, away home that we purchased. Are these people the people that say they are, because they said they are the owners of this house that we've rented, and do we let them stay? And then it turns into, okay, well, they're probably who they say they are, but we don't know what's happening. That turns into, oh no, someone's sick and someone's missing. That turns into, she watched the last episode of Friends. It's like she's been doing this whole time. With all that, okay, so this spectacular film opens up with Julia Roberts' character, whose name is Amanda, but I'll probably just continue to call her Julia Roberts, because that's who she is. He, excuse me. He is, she is in her bedroom with her husband, and she's already up. He's asleep. She wakes him up to let him know that she is packing for a vacation that they are going to take. And because she suspects he might say no, she's already packed his things. That's asinine, but that's not story-wise a problem. It just lets me know that about her, she's kind of a pedantic woman. Her husband seems more or less okay with it, so he tells me that he's willing to kind of go along with shit. And she kind of exposits about how, she tried to think positively about all the people going about their day, but then she realized that she hated people, so now they're going to go away on this vacation. I suppose, sure, but it sort of lets me know that she's long-winded in that. They arrive at the home. It's a really nice place. I immediately kind of wondered, because I personally have this concern, how they could afford to go on a vacation on a whim, because presumably they both work. And if they both work, then that means that they both have work to do. So if you go on a vacation, you must, if you happen to not be what I call rich, which is enough money to spontaneously go on a vacation, you have to not only consider the money that you're not going to make from going on the vacation, you have to consider the money that you're going to spend while there. So it's sort of like a double L. You're not making money and you're spending it. So I'm sort of wondering how a family with 2 children can afford this unless they're just wealthy, and in which case, do they need a vacation? Just get on a plane and go somewhere nice, have a nice hotel. But it seems like they found this in between where they can afford a place. Now, at this juncture, I just sort of assume, okay, well, they found a nice place at a reasonable amount of money. Sure, why not? They happen to have a couple extra thousand lying around, apparently, so they can afford to take this time off, they go out, and the expenses for eating and drinks and everything else for 2 kids, 2 adults, they got it covered. So they go to this place. It is a really nice place. It's I think a 2-story home.
3-story.
2 stories in a basement.
Yeah.
And they go there and everything seems really cool. And so Julia Roberts goes out into town to go get some food. and she sees, and I'm going to call him Kevin Bacon. Kevin Bacon getting supplies for, doomsday supplies, like a shit ton of water and canned goods, Not the typical purchases unless you're going to a food bank. So usually you're either a doomsday person or you are helping the homeless. It's one of the two. So anyway, they see each other, kind of give each other the sort of, the air nod of like, I see you. Yeah, I also see you. And move on. She, at the store, apparently picks up cigarettes for her husband to buy. And I sort of wonder why that's even included in the movie, as it in no way, shape, or form ever is relevant.
Yeah, because he never smokes before that point.
He never smokes ever in the movie a cigarette. At a later point, he vapes, but you didn't need to establish that he smokes cigarettes. He was vaping marijuana. You could have just... Anyway.
Yeah.
So they have a part where she's giving him cigarettes, which then made me wonder how much of an asshole is she? Is he trying to quit smoking cigarettes on his own? If so, it's a really dick move to bring the addictive substance that he's trying to quit to be like, it's vacation, just use it. And if she's the one who wanted him to stop, then why are you getting him addicted to it to make it harder for him to obey whatever rule that you put down in the house? It just seems like a strange thing to add. It does nothing but make me question how much of an asshole she is. She's a pretty big one, but we didn't need this scene to flesh it out. They then go to the beach, at which point I kind of start to suspect that this movie might be stupid, because as they're sitting on the beach and just kind of enjoying their day, Julia Roberts, her family consists of herself, her husband, Clay, their son and daughter, I believe it is Rose and Archie. They are just on the beach kind of chilling out. The husband seems to be the most actually relaxed of them. The son is looking at girls in bikinis, as, young teenage boys want to do. And the daughter is kind of just sitting there staring out into the horizon. And this daughter, with her eagle eye stare, picks out something that the viewer is able to pick out, but no one on the beach seems to suss that there is a boat way out that seems to be huge, that is headed directly for them. I mean, just centered right at the beach. Not kind of to the left, not kind of to the right, not going across parallel with the horizon, dead on. And it's pretty far out at that point, but still, it shouldn't, if it's going to a harbor, if it's going somewhere else, it should be aiming somewhere else. In any case, they continue to enjoy their day at the beach, and the son, at one point, I'm assuming he has a girlfriend named Taylor, and he, asks his mom if he can go see her, and she's like, no, it's too far away. Again, this is a piece of dialogue that doesn't come up until like way, way later when he mentions Taylor, and no one knows who he's talking about, making it feel like the movie is telling us that it's an unimportant detail. So what I ask is, why isn't it included? The scene is interrupted by the daughter noticing that the ship hasn't turned. It's still coming in their direction, and no one on the beach, no one seems concerned. Like, it's fine that maybe their family isn't concerned. They've maybe never been near a beach. They don't understand how much of a problem it is that the boat is just headed straight toward them. I wouldn't expect everyone to know.
But the locals should know.
But the locals should know. The other people on the beach should know. The lifeguard should know. People should know. There should be somebody somewhere looking at this thing going, hey, wait a minute. And at this juncture, because again, the girl, Taylor, who messaged the boy, had dropped a pin, that means that at this point in the movie, the cell service is working. So someone should have been contacting someone to get to the beach and see what's up with this ship that's off course, because it has to be off course. In any case, the beach scene continues, and then the boat gets dramatically closer.
Oh,
and it's... Yes.
Perfect. I don't know if they said this before. No, they said this later. But this isn't the first occurrence of something like this happening.
It's not the first time this has happened. So you'd think somebody would be on the lookout for boats just coming at the beach, but no, I don't have anybody. So, the boat gets much closer, and it gets so close, there's literally no chance it's doing anything but coming ashore. Literally none. And the family and everyone else on the beach is still kind of like... But then, once it actually is within, like, I'd say 2 or 3 meters of actually rubbing... Well, actually several feet past where a ship of that size should have been scraping the bottom, but where this movie decides the bottom of the ocean is about a few feet out from that, people go, wait a minute, this thing's going to crash into the ground. And then they start gathering their stuff and running. It's ridiculous. But anyway, this ship has come ashore as they're being escorted away from the beach, as people are through a tunnel. I don't understand where they were, that there was like a tunnel to the beach, but I haven't been to every beach. I'm sure there is such a thing. Anyway, they end up leaving, and one of the security guards is like, yeah, this has happened before. It was a communications issue. And not a communications, a navigation issue. Their navigation system went down, which if you don't know this about boats or people on them, they know what to do if the navigation system goes down. There are so many methods for being able to navigate on a ship if something happens to your communications, because believe it or not, there are a lot of reasons why you may not have satellite communications. Bad weather, broken equipment, just somebody's a dumbass and knocks something out. There's a lot of reasons why that may happen and a lot of ways you can avoid it. But most importantly, if your communications are out, it doesn't stop you from seeing land and not hitting it with your boat.
Sure.
So there's no reason that would be the reason that these boats are crashing like this. And
wait. Were they trying to imply that the boat was automated?
I think they might have been trying to say that, but I don't know of any fully automated oil tankers.
Yeah, neither do I.
But again, this may be an alternate universe and where there are fully automated oil tankers.
But there's nothing in this that's prescribing us that we're in an alternate universe. Like, we're assuming regular world physics and rules.
Now, what one might say is, well, it could have been a partially automated one and the hacking took over and then drove the ship into the shore. This could have been a situation where they thought they were going in the right direction, but nobody checked visually. This could have been a lot of things. But I would say, as an easy counter to that, and by the way, you will find going forward with this series, this is always my counter to those kind of explanations. If it isn't in the movie, it doesn't count. If you wish to explain it by saying there was a guy who was being super lazy, he should have kept his eyes on where things were going, but he let the automated system take it, fine. But then you need to show me that ship doing that and show me that this ship is an oil tanker that has an automated system and then somebody wasn't manning it and then it went ashore. Second of all, you're going to have to remove the line about it happening before, because if something is taking over or there's just a whole bunch of ship captains that aren't paying attention, then that is something that would be addressed. Oil companies just don't let their tankers run ashore en masse because nobody's looking into it.
Because you also see, because I don't know if the guy that was later when we see the guy on the shore, he is a captain.
No, that was a pilot. That's later.
That was a pilot captain?
Yeah, that was a pilot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so at the beginning of the beach scene, there's this weird, it might just be something with their fucked up camera angles, but there's this weird scene when they're showing them swirling on the boat, when they show them strolling on the beach, and they focus in on all the trash on the beach.
Yes.
What do you think that was for?
Well, to let us know that mankind is rude and leaves trash on the beach. I don't know. The cameraman was let loose, in a sense, and did not care what the movie wanted or needed and was just filming stuff. Now, mind you, I am blaming the cameraman for this, but realistically, it is the director's fault, because the director is the one who tells the cameraman, stop it. That's the person responsible for saying no. But I will continue to speak as if he had been given carte blanche, because that's the only reason I can imagine being a cameraman and doing this without going, hey, maybe no. Anyway, the ship runs ashore, they leave the beach, and are told that it was a navigation issue. They get back to their nice little luxurious house that they paid for, after making a very pointed stop at Starbucks. Again, the product placement in this movie, by the way, is obnoxious and brazen. There is a point where the sun is on the beach in a Rockstar towel. Who the fuck has a beach towel with Rockstar's logo on it? Where do you even get that? Who's thinking about Rockstar right now, except that they recently released their trailer for Grand Theft Auto 6? So that was their product placement, I guess. But realistically, as much as they kept on trying to reference things that had happened recently in history, etc., like with terrorist attacks and the rest of it, they sure did do a poor job of keeping their random moments under wraps of like Starbucks. Huh, we got this out, this Macintosh sitting right here. Boy, do you love it! It's just a strange setup for product placement, because again, I would have seen the Starbucks cup if she hadn't said let's stop at Starbucks. It was just weak.
Rockstar, Starbucks, and Tesla. This movie was brought to you by those three companies, and they want everybody to know.
Yep. So
and they don't think they have eyeballs.
They do not.
So they talked about it.
Yeah, they had to tell us. The Rockstar one was a little subtle though. He didn't say, "Wow, my Rockstar blanket sure is comfortable," because Rockstar didn't pay that like put a line of dialogue in the script money. They spent it all on trying to make sure that the game came out. I guess we'll see how that game works. Anyway, so back at the house, after getting the Starbucks, Julia Roberts discovers that the internet is down and the phones are down. Now they're not working. Whatever affected the ship apparently has affected a bunch of the ships, so I don't see how it's really connected to this event right now, but internet's down, phone service is down.
Also, I should point out that no one jumped off of the boat.
No one was even on the deck of the boat saying, like, get out of the way, or trying to signal or anything, and I was just like, it must be a fully automated boat, or the people don't care. But I don't know of a fully automated oil tanker, why you would not have a single solitary person with eyes on what's happening, but whatever.
Yeah.
So, in any case, Julia Roberts is sitting there realizing that things aren't working well, and, Clay's just kind of hanging out, but she sees some deer, and she tells him to come and look at them, and for some reason, these deer only appear in numbers that are reasonable when the adults are looking, but when the kids are looking, they're like gang, and then there's like 50 of them. So, there's like a deer and it's a doe and a fawn, but, it's deer. So, they look at that, it's an interesting existence of animals, and then it moves on. And I'm kind of wondering why we were shown them at all in that light. It was sort of a strange, I guess, to let us know that there are deer in the area and everybody's okay with it. Well, we get to see them eat for a little bit afterwards, and they're having a nice life, and then the sun goes down, and we cut back to the family playing Jenga. Now, I'm assuming that the from space shot, and I say family, I mean the Julia Roberts and her husband Clay. I'm assuming that the space shot, because they do it a couple of times where they make it look like it's an eclipse. There's another point later where they have a shot of like the moon and showing Earth in the background. What the fuck was that for? What did that mean? What?
Yeah.
Why? Did the hacking affect the moon? And again, it would presumably only even affect America. America is the only country affected by this, which, let's be real, in the grand scheme of the world, in terms of number of people, it's not the end of civilization. There are places to go. The end of civilization means there's nowhere you can go to get a TV or a martini or watch a movie. There are places to do that. There's Canada.
Which wouldn't that have meant that either the terrorists were fucking with all the world's satellites, or they should have been able to find a satellite from a different country to bounce their shit off of?
You are correct, but I'm going to give you the response the movie will give you, and that is
silence.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we get a shot of the sun setting on Earth, which, by the by, if it's from space, it's not the sun setting. It's just the Earth rotating around the sun. It is no longer a sunset. You are just showing a rotation of the Earth, because the sun did not set for the Earth. It is just shining on a different part of it.
Gotta add that to the list of things that this creative team didn't know.
Yeah. And so, but we cut, in case you like made that connection, you're like, oh, the sun's not necessarily setting, and they're like, but it's nighttime. I'm like, well, you could have skipped the shot of space, but anyway. They're playing Jenga and being kind of irresponsible with their Jenga playing, but it's okay. They're drinking wine, having a good time, whatever. And as they're kind of talking, there's a knock at the door. Now, I should clarify, this house, and I'm going to use that term loosely given the number of windows, this house is part house, part clear glass. There are so many windows so next to each other that are wall length. They pretty much go from the ceiling to the floor. And there are too many of them. You are exposed. If you are in this house, someone sees you. There are no curtains to speak of on a single one of these bitches. So it is an exposed location. But all the same, he tries to arm himself, and with a weird looking vase. Looks like if coral were a vase.
Hold on. So there is one place in the house that doesn't have enough windows for you to see through, and that was the front door.
Well,
Because
you could see from the windows that were to the left or right of it.
Yeah, to the left or the right. So the only place that you didn't have a peephole for the door, you didn't have a camera to look through the door in the super rich house, and the only place that didn't have windows was the place where you expect people to come from.
Well, there was another place that didn't have windows, the basement. But we'll get to that.
In the basement.
Dumbass basement. Okay, so he opens the door, ready to club, and then there's just a black man standing there with his daughter, or at least he claims, and the two of them begin to have a dialogue, which, to summarize it, it's, hey, there's a power outage and I got a bum knee and I didn't want to walk to where we stay out in the city, but we decided to come here because this is actually our house. And as the daughter continuously repeats, yeah, this is our house, so we should be able to just come in here. And Julia Roberts is very much upset by this. She is like, no, don't let these people stay here. We have no proof of who they are. Not necessarily against her. One might try and file this as a white versus black thing, as, Julia Roberts' family is clearly very white, and this man and his daughter are very black. But, I mean, these are strangers appearing at the door with no ID. Now, the daughter was never asked for ID, but she should have some. They apparently came from, he says, the Philharmonic, and he doesn't have his ID because he left it in his coat, which is back at the Philharmonic. And she doesn't have ID because no one asked her for it, and no one realized that she absolutely should and would have ID in her clutch. But, hey, no one bothers with that, but they don't know how to identify themselves. It is later stated by Julia Roberts, she's like, well, they don't have any pictures of themselves in the house. And her husband replies, well, they probably hide them for when people come by. And I'm like, wouldn't it then be prudent to ask them to show you the pictures of themselves that are presumably hidden in the house? Because I know from unfortunate fact that is what the police will do. If you claim to live somewhere and you get in there, they'll be like, okay, we need to see some evidence that you are the person who lives here. You can just show them pictures of yourself that exist in the house. And that usually goes a long way to making people think, you live here. I doubt that you snuck in here and put up pictures of you and then decide to show them to me. But it kind of goes back and forth with the husband going, it'll be fine. We can't send them away. There's a blackout. And then Julia Roberts being like, nah, dog, this ain't right. But regardless, he's able to win out and they allow them to stay in the basement. It is very clear through their discussion that the way that they choose to phrase things makes it seem very disingenuous, and it makes them come across as suspicious on purpose, because clearly the writing is built to where they don't know any other way to do this or to create tension in this scene, because if any of these characters are really upfront and frank with each other, it will disperse all the tension of, are these people really who they say they are? Do they really live here? And Julia Roberts makes some valid points where she's like, well, they could just be people who work here and have keys to things and are just claiming to actually be the people who own the house. That's not actually untrue. That could be the case. He does have, the man does have keys to the liquor cabinet. But that could have been, he could have killed the actual owner and took them. He could have just had a copy of them because he works there, or made a copy at an earlier point, or banked on them to convince someone that he lived there when there are no photos of anyone who does live there in the house. So I think that her concerns are valid, but what isn't valid is that they decide to let them stay and go to sleep without telling their children that there are new people in the house that they might want to be cautious of, especially since Julia Roberts infers that maybe the man might molest their daughter. Okay, and then they are content to sleep separately from their children the entire night with these people who they do not trust in their home. Well, not in their home, but in the home that they're staying in. I don't know about that one, Chief. But after their, cautionary back and forth, they eventually agree to let them stay, go to the basement, and then in the morning, well, before they go to bed, they see an alert. Both groups see an alert on the TV that, blue screen alert, alarm, this is an emergency, but it's just saying that all the channels are down from broadcasting. So it lets you know that at least the power went out story has some sort of backing. Something is going on. In the morning, the wife, Julia Roberts, wakes up and doesn't particularly care to hurry to see if her children are still alive, at least because one of them is currently leaning over her face in a really awkwardly shot, like phone orientation shot asking her about getting the internet working or getting the television working because she's heard about reruns and she wants to watch the ending of Friends. Now, she's been watching this since the beginning. In the opening car ride when they came to the house, she was trying to watch Friends, but the signal went out. And now she still hasn't been able to watch the series finale of Friends.
Which, that kind of... So, when exactly did the internet go out? Because
so she lost connection. She lost connection in the car. She apparently wasn't, actually, I'm not sure if she was on the very last episode or not, but I feel like she was on the last episode in the car and would have had ample time.
Yeah.
To watch the rest of the episode in the car.
Yeah. But it went out on the carway there. But
yeah, it
the
did.
brother was able to contact his girlfriend.
Yeah, and get a pin from her.
Yeah.
But I think, it looks like she's not on the last one. She's on, like, one of the last ones. Again, given the amount of time that they had, I don't see why she couldn't finish it. But, hey, maybe she didn't. She was busy staring at her mom like a creepo. Anyway, so the mom, eventually sits up and kind of greets the day. And then she realizes that there's a whole bunch of messages on her phone that are like breaking news. There's been a power failure. There are hackers behind this. And then the Washington Post sends a message that's just nothing but like looks like web dings. And then she tries to show her husband, but all of the alerts go away. Now, unless they hacked her phone specifically, there's no reason alerts that have already made it through to your phone would go away. It's just that if you clicked on them, they wouldn't go anywhere. So
also, those alerts popped up on her phone after they lost the internet signals. So they would have had to hack her phone, give her internet to show her them, and then delete them from the phone.
Right. So they apparently just went away in a way that no phone has ever behaved ever. And so the alerts showed up on her phone and then went away magically when she tried to show it to her husband, making you think that maybe there was some sort of nefarious actor or something like that. But anyway, she's like, oh, it says that it's hackers. Now, mind you, I would assume it's hackers if somebody's knocking out the electronics. It's not that big of a reveal, but the movie treats it like it is, like hackers. So the husband wakes up and pretty much tells her, hey, it'll be all right. Everything's Gucci. And he just kind of is cool with it. The daughter kind of pulls him out of bed and tries to make him fix the TV, but it's not fixable. He says he'll go to the store and get rabbit ears, and then she acts like she doesn't know what rabbit ears are. I mean, either she doesn't, which fair enough, or she does, which then why did you ask what rabbit ears do? And if you don't know, then why are you asking what will rabbit ears do? Clearly it will fix the TV, supposedly.
Okay.
Like, it's just a strange writing of dialogue where usually it's like, well, if one of these two things are true, then it's still wrong. Like, what you wrote is still whack. She goes out and gets really bored and goes out to look at the deer in the woods. Now, mind you, there's kind of an alarming amount of deer at this point, like maybe like 30 or 50. There's a lot of deer. A bunch of deer outside. Nobody seems to see them, even though they're infinity windows by the kitchen, which leads out to like where the pool is, and they can see everything that's out there. But, they just don't. There are lines throughout this movie, like on occasion, where like the little girl will be like, nobody pays attention to me. And I guess this is the evidence of that. But it does seem like the parents do care about their children when they're in their vicinity. But the movie just kind of tells you that's not true. So I don't know. Anyway, a bunch of deer show up.
I think we should also point out that at no point where the deer ever do anything that's relevant.
Oh, yeah. No, they just stare.
They just stare.
Also, the daughter, Ruth, the black girl, she has a 96 tattooed on her shoulder. And I'm going to assume that that's relevant to something, but I don't know what. I don't know why she has it tattooed. And it's never explained, and it's not an important character detail. Maybe the actress just has the tattoo, and they decided not to cover it up. But it was just sort of a strange thing that I saw, and I was like, is this relevant in some way? Maybe it is. Who knows? It might be some sort of thing for people who are like doomers or something. I don't know. Anyway, the daughter wakes up and strolls out and has kind of like a little powwow, or a little, I guess, growling match with Julia Roberts. They sort of sass at each other. And Julia Roberts is surprisingly aggressive to a person who she has to know is like, it's a teenage girl. What are you doing, bro? Like, why? What's up?
Oh, okay. So I just Googled it. The number 96 has the meaning as a tattoo means leave the world behind.
So they found a way to tattoo the name of the movie on her shoulder because that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know what about this character makes me think she'd want that tattoo.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's worse. So bad.
It's actually really stupid. It makes me wonder about her other equally dumb looking tattoos. One that looks like there's like a dotted red line or something that looks like maybe it's like a cut here thing, and there's a heart with maybe some Chinese symbols written into it. It's just, I just feel like a very irresponsible parent lets their child get tattoos, and an extra irresponsible one lets them get such stupid tattoos. Like, if you're going to let your kid get tattoos, fine, but let them be, like, dope as fuck. This is just a bunch of random shit you drew. Like, she looks like a middle school notebook where you just doodle. Anyway, so they start talking, and everybody has, like, well, let me clarify. The Black family has an alarming knowledge of hackers. And the night before, they had kind of like a weird, before they went to bed, they had a conversation and was like, oh, does your client know anything? And it made me think that maybe they were some sort of international spies or something. And the father proposed sleeping on the floor instead of in the bed with his daughter, which made me think, oh, they don't actually have any connection to each other. They're just here on a mission of some kind. And they were sort of inferring that they wanted the family to leave. So they weren't trying to kill them, but it did seem like they belonged there. They just didn't want them to know what they were up to. Well, no, that's not the case. It just seems that way because the writing shit. Also, this morning conversation, she starts talking about hackers and that hackers can get into power plants and things like that, and starts citing, actual instances of hacking that exist. And I am sort of confused as to why this girl would know so much about it. The father's entire spiel about the Philharmonic was that, he's really into that kind of thing and he's really a promoter of music. And the daughter was like, well, then he makes you learn all about it. But I don't know what that statement was meant to mean, because she seems to know more about hacking than she does about music. I didn't see her play an instrument through this whole thing. And apparently this is her house. So you'd think if she has an instrument, it'd be there. Maybe she's trying to pluck a few strings, but nope. The connection to the Philharmonic or them being there was completely negligible. And I think it would have been a far more interesting prospect if they had showed up looking like hobos. Like they were just out and they just had, jeans on and they weren't dressed nicely. They were just a couple of kind of shaggy looking people who show up at the house going, we live here. So they are talking. So they end up talking with Julia Roberts because Dad comes in and the two of them are talking with Julia Roberts about hacking some more. And then she mentions that she saw the alerts on her phone that it might be hackers. And the father looks like, oh, the hackers? And it's like, so does he know something about it? And when you find out what he actually knows about this, which, by the way, spoiler alert, it's nothing. When you find out what he actually learns about this, it doesn't clarify why the music just cranks up when that occurs. Now, detail I left out, because again, a lot of these details are so nothing. They pan into nothing and could have been handled in some other way. When the father went to the liquor cabinet, he actually went to go get money because part of it was to refund them, because it was like, oh, well, we're staying here and you paid us to be here, so we'll refund you at least, half of the money if you're going to continue to stay. But, we want to stay here tonight because we don't want to travel back to our home with the power outage, etc. And in the drawer that he got the money from was a gun. And after Julia Roberts mentions the bit about the hacking alerts that she got, he looks at the drawer with the gun in it. And it makes me very confused, because why? Now, when I saw the gun, it was so blatantly Chekhov's gun. I was like, well, it's obviously relevant. So what are we doing with this gun? I also kind of clarified in my heart that he was not a nefarious actor, because if you were, then you'd already have a gun. Anyway, after he's being sussy about it, he talks to his daughter and they discuss the mother of the family, who he mentioned was on a trip somewhere. And he mentions that she'll be fine. And she's probably on her flight coming back now. And I bet it's all good. And the daughter doesn't seem to really believe him. But, they have this kind of moment of, oh, I'm sure she's on her way back. So the father, who does actually smoke in the car, which, he doesn't need to. Why? What does it lend to this movie? Anyway, he does actually smoke his cigarettes in the car, and he goes out to try and find information. So Clay goes out to find information or find a gas station or something. Meanwhile, it cuts to the daughter smoking a vape which we'll find out later is weed, but I'll just spoil it now. It's weed. The black father, who wants to go by GH for some reason, decides to go and visit a neighbor and see what's going on with them. As he does so, you see that he has a bunch of undelivered messages on instant messengers to his wife that just haven't gone through. And he sends her another one, and that is the last time that gets brought up. And I don't know why it was shown to us at all, other than to, I guess, validate the story.
Again, because the time frame on those messages would have been in time frames when they had internet connection.
Yeah,
so,
it's possible that he sent at least some of them before it would go through, or he did send them and they just didn't. They just didn't go through at the time, and were listed as not delivered. But in any case, whatever the setup was with his. Whatever the setup was, because he didn't, at least of the messages we were shown, he didn't start sending them until about 9:30, which would have been pretty late at night, and most of this had kicked off by then. He tried to send her messages and it didn't work. But again, we didn't need to know that because, like, we get it. He can't contact her. But I guess it shows something of his character. Now, this is like one of the first of the instances of this movie doing this in this cheap way, where a character later notices something they would not be able to help but notice from way long ago. As a matter of fact, this is the second instance. The first one was the boat. The second one is this. So he shows up at this house, that's his neighbor's house, and he was also out to get, information, like Clay, the other dad, was out to get information. And he pulls up to the house, he sends the messages to his wife, and then he actually looks at the house and sees that it is absolutely trashed. Now, in retrospect, I don't know why it's trashed.
There's no reason for it to be trashed.
There's no reason for it to be trashed in the way that it is trashed. You would imagine that either it would be blown in half or fine. I don't understand the in-between. Like, the sign in the front of the house is kind of crooked and stuff. It's just strange.
Yeah, it looks like there were looters.
Yeah.
But looters would have implied that there are people roaming around.
And there's nobody.
They would have potentially ran into.
Yeah, and there's also just stuff in the house. Like, if it was looted, it just kind of remained unlooted. So he goes back inside, and he goes inside the house, and it cuts back to the rest of his daughter and Julia Roberts' family. And they're in the pool swimming because that's all they could think to do on this vacation. She literally brought her kids out to swim in a pool, and it seems to me like they just could have found a pool. But she brings the kids out, they're out there swimming in the pool, and the daughter, Ruth, comes out, and she has her tattoos all over the place, and she's in her little itty-bitty lavender bikini. She has no cake, she has no boobs, but she is showing them off. And she gets the little teenage boy all revved up, because teenage boys, I guess, don't need to see a lot, especially if it's in the flesh. They're just like, yeah, this is it.
Yeah, it's anything. Anything is fine.
It's like, that's enough, just the idea of it. And so the brother's just staring extra hard. So Ruth takes a seat next to Julia Roberts, and they continue to kind of low-key snipe at each other, which, again, I'm sort of like, if I'm at my house, and presumably this is Ruth's house, and somebody is being mean to me in my house, I'm not going to hang out by my pool. Like, if I'm going to be by my pool, I'll just be somewhere else. I'm just like...
So, I'm assuming that Ruth is, just done with high school. Maybe a year or two done.
I would assume. Because she did mention, talking to Julia Roberts earlier, that, she was just trying to figure out what she wanted to do and didn't get stuck into a bad career. So I'd assume that's the case.
It feels like to me that she's the type of person that's being petty with a teenager.
Yes.
Okay.
If she has a teenager of her own, she should know better. But yeah, I won't clock the movie for being bad about that, because I've seen so many parents get into legitimate arguments with their teenager, and I'm like, why are you arguing with this person? So, hey, it'd just be that way, I guess. So it's made clear, because the brother asked the sister, who are these people? That they haven't made clear who they are to their children yet. And the daughter is just staring out into the woods like a weirdo. She doesn't really respond. So Dad, Clay, is driving out in the middle of nowhere, drives past a horse with a bridle on, but no saddle. Strange. Also, if you're going to show that, then why don't you just import it into the story? Because a horse is a invaluable thing to have if communications are down and things are bad and gas is about to be scarce. Just saying.
Would have helped him get into the city.
It would have helped him get into the city. Not that you want to be there, though. So, Dad's off driving. He's trying to get his GPS to work for some reason. Like, I feel like the only thing that you need to know about the situation is that the GPS and the satellites aren't working. The phone systems are down. But he seems to be like, well, if I drive a little bit further out, it'll be better. Even though everything went apeshit, and even though there are all these alarms and things going off, on the TV, maybe if I just stick my hand up high enough in the air, But, Signal does pop in for half a second to let the audience know that they have had a catastrophic cyber attack in the South. And then the signal just kind of goes away. And the character doesn't hear it, but we hear it. Now, mind you, we already know that it's been told it's a cyber attack. So why are you, again, hitting us with a cyber attack? So he's lost now. To be clear, he left to go into town. He did not know his way into town.
No, where the fuck he was going.
He seemed to believe that he could use his GPS to find the town, even though the only known quantity was that GPS is not working, cell towers are down. So he ends up getting lost, and he makes a U-turn trying to find his way into town. Baffling.
Let's not forget about the Spanish woman he came across.
Oh, we'll get to that. So it cuts back to the GH, which stands for George, but that's just as goofy. GH is going into the house that looks like a tornado's gone through. Like looters have tossed the place, but ain't no loot. The front door is open for reasons, and I don't know what happened to the family inside. You'd think zombies or something, but no, people are just missing. Why? Because the internet went out, I guess. So he goes out, he starts making his way to the back area he starts making his way into the garage of the house first. And while he goes through all this, the daughter is saying that she saw something, and her and the brother end up walking off into the woods to kind of create this scene of tension that cuts back and forth between doing shit in this blown out house and the kids, being out in the woods. Mind you, and I need to clarify this, the kids in the woods, utterly irrelevant. This adventure is apparently irrelevant. It shouldn't be. It should be actually very major in his life and to his health. But it isn't. So he continues to look around the house and eventually sees that something's going on out back. There's it's like there's some punctures in the window, and he announces himself, but he just sees that stuff is broken and sort of tossed around. And we cut to the dad who's driving on a new road. The other dad, Clay, who's driving on a new road, and he is looking for the town still. He comes across a woman who speaks Spanish too. So to extradite this scene, he comes across a woman who speaks Spanish. The woman, because apparently this movie thinks that Spanish-speaking people don't understand what it means to not speak Spanish. So she just speaks rapid Spanish at him, even though he makes it clear he doesn't understand her. She makes no effort to try and say something in English. Basic words like danger or help or, town this way or I can help or anything. She says nothing. She makes no attempt to speak English. She just speaks Spanish rapidly at him. And then as he starts to drive away, she starts saying things that I don't even understand. And really, I know ayúdame. Like, you could just say, basically, help me. And at least somebody would understand that. But she just starts telling him things. And he's just like, I don't understand. And he drives away. And then he gets not too far before he sees a drone coming at him, dropping what looks like some sort of red gas. But turns out it's pamphlets. But anyway, he drives away from it like it's fucking noxious gas. Anyway, this movie is really big on creating drama where it's not. Mind you, all of this is going to happen while it's cutting back between the kids in the cabin, GH and what he's doing, and the kids. To summarize the kids are going into the woods, and the older brother is trying to scare his younger sister, I guess basic big brother shit. He's out there with her, and they find a little, not a cabin, it's a shed. It's a big shed. And he says, oh, there must be someone sleeping out here, because there's an indent in some leaves. It could have been an animal, could have been anything, could have been nothing, just the way that the leaves were. I don't even know why there were that many leaves in a shed. Whatever. And so, you know, it scares the sister. And then there's a window that's in the back of the shed. And he's like, look, that's the room you were sleeping in. Some guy must have been here looking at you that window. And then he scares her with like, and she bangs her head. And she's like, that hurt. And he's like, hey, gotcha. You know, it's dumb. So then they go wandering out into the woods even further for reasons. He ends up getting bitten by a tick for reasons that we'll get to. That's relevant. He gets the tick off him, and I guess relative time.
Actually, is the tick actually relevant?
I don't know, honestly. The tick could be unrelated to what happens to him later. Anyway, he gets bitten by a tick, and way off in the distance, there's a house, and the girl's like, we should go to the house. Why? I don't fucking know. I don't know. But she just says it. And I'm like, why that house? Why that house in particular? What's so special about it? Does it have a come hither sign? Is there like lights shining in it? No, just a house. Just a house like the house that they're in, except it has less windows. I mean, I guess for that reason, I'd be interested in it, but you know. So they leave and get ready to go back home, but then a loud noise interrupts them. A loud noise interrupts most of these adventures. So I've pretty much summed up the dad play and the kids, but we need to spend a little bit more time to explain the whole of GH's adventure. Again, this is needlessly cutting back and forth between these three events. So GH goes into the garage of his neighbor and I guess they're the best of buds because he knows where his satellite phone is. And so he tries to use the satellite phone and doesn't get a signal. Surprising who? No one. He then gets ready to leave. He's by his car, but then he sees that back behind the garage, which would have been a more interesting shot if he had realized it upon exiting the garage, but he like leaves, goes to his car, then approaches it from an angle opposite to that he would have if he came out of the garage, and then sees there's stuff strewn in the back area of the house. It's just, again, with the direction and the camera work is just all over the place. So he goes out there, and the way that it's shot, he walks over this hill. So if you imagine a person approaching a beach, right? And it's like a little crest. And then he walks and he looks down in the sand and there's a watch. Why would he be impressed with this watch with all the shit that's laying everywhere? I don't know. He tries to pick up the watch. And lo and behold, the watch is attached to a severed arm. And he panics and he's like, oh! And he falls. And he looks in the direction where that came from. There is a whole entire dead person, captain of an airplane, laying in the sand. Then it turns out that there's not just a captain. There's a whole goddamn plane crash on his left hand.
Now, mind you, the watch, at the very fucking least, the watch on the severed hand was at least buried in the sand.
Yes. The captain is just laying there.
Just out there.
And from where
he missed it.
So from where he fell, so like the shot of the watch is right at where the grass ends and the sand begins. But unless he did 4 full front flips, he somehow teleported to the middle of the beach, because that's where he is when he gets up from falling, next to this body that's way out. There is no way he didn't see the absolute fuckfest that is on this beach. There are dead bodies everywhere. There's stuff everywhere. There are pieces of a full-size airplane strewn all over the place. That he couldn't have seen it from the street is almost insane given the layout. So then, while he's looking at all this, what he notices in the actual distance, like pretty far in the distance, way up in the clouds, is an airplane. And again, it's not pointed left or right, it's pointed straight at him. And then the movie cuts, and then the plane is way closer, and then he starts to run in the sand in his Doc Martens. No, I'm kidding, those are penny loafers. He's running in penny loafers up to the like embankment. And you'd think that maybe he'd, I don't know, try and like duck against the earth or something, but no, he just makes a run back for the house. And the plane crashes where the other plane did, on the beach. We'll get back to that in a minute. He runs into the house and closes the door on the fallout from the plane crashing into the earth. And it all burst in through the windows. presumably what happened the first time. Now, if that's the case, I have a lot of questions about how the interior of this house looks. I think it would have been much clearer that a plane had crashed right outside. Second of all, I don't think anything on the front of the house would have been affected by a plane crash on the beach in the back. At least not to the degree that it was. Now, to revert back to this plane, as far as we know, navigation is what's out. So, and again, like a ship, an airplane will have this thing on it called a pilot. And a pilot is a person who can take manual control of a plane even if there is an autopilot, which, by the by, an autopilot is not something that just takes unrelenting control of a plane. And if it did, let's say it did take unrelenting control of the plane and lock out the pilot from being able to do anything or affect the controls, two problems. Number one, why didn't you tell me that? When you show the interior of a plane, just show that setup. You'll skip the shit with them walking in the woods and the tick bite and staring at a house you should have no business seeing, and just have an airplane going through the troubles. And number two, if you are a terrorist who's taking control of a plane, why wouldn't you have it crash somewhere relevant? I mean, America famously has a couple of planes that went somewhere relevant. So, terrorists know what to do with planes. I'm just saying, it just seems sort of ridiculous to just crash it into the earth. You could have crashed into the ocean then. Why'd you bother bringing it ashore? Anywhoosies, everything else
seems to be a running theme. Like, things that crash in this movie are trying to aim for the same place.
Yeah, the shore. Where people who are on the shore would have plenty of time to see it coming and move. So once the kids have been gone a sufficient amount of time, eventually we get back to Ruth and Julia Roberts talking, and basically Ruth just accuses Julia Roberts' kids of possibly peeing in the pool. They spent a whole scene to clarify that.
Yeah.
And they also clarify that that the daughter Rose really likes Friends, which as the audience we already knew that, and it is not relevant to a single other character in the show to know that. But we established that these two now know. Like, the mother obviously would know because it's her daughter, and Ruth doesn't need to know because why would she care? And it makes a statement that the kids are like that Friends is nostalgic for a time that never existed. And I think that's sort of funny because that's kind of the 90s. Like, if you think of 90s sitcoms, it was all very romanticized versions of what, big family life was like. And that was fine. It seems like a profound statement, but if you think about all television at that time, shut up. So once all these disparate scenes, randomly cut back and forth between each other as if it's somehow keeping up this air of tension. Like, this movie is so desperate to keep up tension when it doesn't actually have any. It's kind of crazy. So the black father, manages to get home, and he's covered in water because apparently
it'd be covered in sand.
He should be covered in sand. And also he says that it crashed in the ocean, but it didn't. It expressly crashed on the beach. But whatever. Sure, crashed in the ocean, or the explosion was big enough. I don't know how the explosion would kick water forward over the back of the explosion to the front and then in enough quantities to hit him around the door in the house. I'm also surprised that the door didn't get taken off his hinges. Whatever. Whatever. He survived. He got wet. Whatever. And he says that he fell into his neighbor's pool, and that's why he's wet. And the daughter doesn't really believe him, and it's more like aggravated that he's lying. But he asks her to go get clothes for him, some dry clothes. I need to clarify, he does not change into these dry clothes. But he asks her to go get him some dry clothes, and basically it's to get her to leave the room. He then tells Julia Roberts, who is also there, because everyone else the kids are missing in the woods, and the other dad, Clay, is off running away from red pamphlets and Hispanic women. And, everybody's somewhere else, so the only people left is his daughter and Julia Roberts. But when his daughter's gone, he explains to Julia that in his line of work, there are patterns that govern the world, and he sees the patterns. Okay, he works in the stock trade, from what I understand. Well, basically what's explicitly told is that he works in stocks, and more like an advisor for people who trade in stocks, which I guess is just a stockbroker, really. But in any case...
I thought he was a financial advisor.
Yes, but he also said that he does the movement of money. So that's a stockbroker, unless I'm mistaken. Now, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But stockbrokers move your funds about. So if you're like, trading in this thing or that thing, you do that and then you pull your money.
Right, but like a financial advisor would move your actual funds, which would, because he said he noticed when one of his big clients started moving large amounts of money around.
Well, in which case, he's either a financial advisor or a stockbroker or both. Point is, he kind of makes this sort of statement that whatever his job is, he sees patterns in it, and that means that he knew that something was going to happen. And he's like, I knew something was going to happen. Julia Roberts like, well, did your neighbor say something? And he's like, no, but I couldn't get a signal on the satellite phone. Again, we know this. Because here's what's weird about phones. They are, technically speaking, satellite phones. They ultimately connect with satellites. They are not actually satellite phones, which deal one-to-one with a satellite versus a cell tower. But if the cell tower isn't working and the cells aren't working anywhere and none of the GPSs are working, then we know that a GPS phone isn't going to reach anything. But, this is revealed to the audience as if it's a surprise. So, because it's possible for phones to be down and there not to be, an actual problem with a satellite, but it's a fairly good indicator whether or not something on the ground can reach it. Because, again, there could be nothing wrong with the satellite, but if you can't reach it, same difference. But the GPSs are directly connected to the satellites, and they don't work. You already knew this. We all already knew this. What are we doing? But it is possible. I will grant it is possible that it isn't really. I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt. It is possible that they did not, through the convolution of events, did not know that the GPSs were down. Cell phones being down do not necessarily mean that satellite contact is down. And internet being down doesn't necessarily mean it's down. However, if the second that Dad was getting ready to leave the house and didn't know where he was going and tried to get a GPS connection, he should have realized that when it said no satellite connection, there was no satellite connection, and just tell everybody in the house that that's what's happening. But a satellite phone is a more direct way to do that. Some GPS systems do ping phone towers.
Here's my thing about GH's satellite phone. Like, his satellite, that would prove that it wouldn't have been a terrorist attack by any individual country, because that satellite phone would have looked for any satellite. It wouldn't have cared about what nationality, whose signal. It just looks for a satellite and tries to link to it. It didn't find anything. It didn't find a Chinese satellite. It didn't find a Japanese satellite or a Korean satellite or a Russian satellite. It found nothing.
I'm not positive on that. I don't know that there maybe are cell phones that are locked to specific satellites. I don't know enough about it to say one way or the other.
That's what he had a survivor satellite. It's made to try to ping any source. Any source.
No. Well, in which case, he didn't get a ping, and all the satellites were down, or at least all the ones in orbit over Earth or around where he was.
Yeah.
Around the part of Earth in which he resides. I feel like... I do feel like him saying that means that, yeah, Julia Roberts should believe him, but she kind of is like, oh, well, it could be any other thing, and I'm like, I don't know about that. They're slow to get that everything's down, especially when it comes to GPS. But that ain't even my main problem.
3 days to figure out she was down.
Yes. And that's more the problem than them not knowing. It's them not knowing for that long, because you would immediately be trying everything. Yeah. But in any case, they specifically say that it's our satellites, which is to say the United States. Our satellites are down. So he then reveals to her that he saw a plane crash, and he mentions that it wasn't the only one. And he also explains that he doesn't think that what's happening is just like some offshoot terrorist attack, that it's something a bit more than that. Then the noise hits, and it's this kind of high ringing, piercing thing that then starts to crack windows and drop everybody. All the characters go running around. Julia Roberts goes running into the woods. She has no idea where kids are, and she just runs into the woods. After all the high-pitched ringing stops, they find her. They're just like, hey, Mom, what's up? And I'm like, okay. Apparently the woods are infinitely huge and teeny tiny. So they're all back in the kitchen. Everybody's reconvened. They're kind of talking about, what happened and like what it could have been. And the son thinks it was a plane breaking a sound barrier, which is stupid even for this stupid kid. Also to clarify, while he was in the pool in the earlier scene, he was taking pictures of the young girl in a secretive manner, clearly for fat material later, which again, a scene that doesn't need to be there because they later show that he is trying to masturbate to the pictures but can't, either from his conscious or because of a tick bite. I don't know. But he just can't seem to get it to happen. So what one could take from that is that the scene doesn't need to be there at all, but it is. Again, a lot of little scenes that don't need to be there at all. So he thinks that it's possible that, that the sound that they heard was a plane breaking the sound barrier and it would have had to do it for like upwards of 2 minutes. That's crazy, but it's just ridiculous. But sure. They kind of send the kids to go take a bath or change their clothes or do whatever. Mind you, the dad who sent GH, who sent his daughter to go get him clothes and who did go get them and did listen in on the conversation he was having with Julia Roberts at a certain point to hear about the plane crash, apparently threw the clothes outside or in the window in the trash or something because bro is still in wet clothes and people ask him about it. They're sitting there and like, why are you in wet clothes? And he's like, I fell in the pool. Or just lies. And everybody's weirdly lying about stuff that doesn't matter. It's sort of strange.
It's so stupid. Like, why did you send your daughter out of the room to not hear about a thing that you talked about while she was in the room? Like, you had a conversation that lasted so long that she came back with the clothes and heard the conversation. What the fuck are you doing? What is this director doing?
What is anyone doing? I don't know why people... It's sort of like soap opera mentality where you have an open conversation about the treachery you plan to commit with your back to the door so like the maid can hear you speak. And like, oh no, and then goes and tells her mistress or whatever. It's just really ridiculous. So Julia Robertson demands to know what's going on because she knows they've been hiding something, and he's like, nothing's really changed in terms of what we do. We just have to stay here and find out what Clay knows. And they kind of make a bunch of non-plans and kind of reiterate the plot again. They're like a plane crash and everything's crazy, and Julia Roberts is just ramping up her aggro with these people because basically what they're telling her is, I don't know what's happening. And then the daughter pretty much hits on a, you don't believe that we're telling the truth. Wonder why that is. It starts making like a you racist comment, which, I mean, maybe she is, but, it's sort of irrelevant to the fact that she doesn't live here and she's yelling at you. I feel like that's a backhand call if I've ever heard one. But yeah, she's out here demanding that you know things that you don't know, and you continue to not know them. They kind of sass at each other again because the plot wants them to, and I think this is supposed to be their character growth, is that they don't trust each other, and eventually they'll kind of come to a middle ground. But they sass back and forth at each other, and then the daughter just marches out, and Julia Roberts comes to an epiphany. The guy that she locked eyes with at the market that time, that was buying for Doomsday or a homeless shelter, he knew this was going to happen. And then GH kind of is like, oh, you mean the guy that has like a baseball hat and a beard? And yeah, he literally does that every time. Like, he didn't know shit. He just always preps for this kind of thing. And it still seems to Julia Roberts that she's like, yeah, that's the answer. That's the guy. I'm like, no, if he was able to completely rattle off who that was based on his shopping list, that guy shops like that all the time. That's when Clay makes it back, and he's like, is everybody okay? I heard the noise, and I came back, and they're like, well, did you see anybody? Or did you make it to town? He's like, no, I didn't make it to town, which we know he didn't. But then he says, no, I didn't see anybody, which we know is a lie. He has lied about seeing the Hispanic woman because everybody lies about something all the time. He then, apparently, as he was racing away from these red pamphlets, which did overtake him, he stopped and picked one up. And it's got Death to America written on it in Arabic, or Sanskrit, or who knows what, I don't know. It was written, and the son says that he recognizes the text from a video game. And I've played a lot of video games with foreign text on it, and I wouldn't recognize it. But hey, maybe he really liked that Death to America logo he saw. But in terms of seeing it, the family freaks out. They decide they gotta go. They have to leave now. Mind you, strangers showing up on my door and saying that they need to share the space with me would have made me leave. But this is where they draw the straw. After all the noises, after the children missing, after everything, they didn't want to leave. But then they saw a Death to America pamphlet. Time to get. So they get in their car and they're like, we got to do what's best for our family. And they just leave. And the daughter's kind of like, let them go, bro. Like, it ain't that critical. And while, while that happens, they leave. The daughter, Ruth, reveals that she heard the conversation about what happened. And the whole reason he lied, obviously, was because he didn't want her to be worried about the mother, who is probably dead, because planes are crashing, So you have a kid, you don't want him to worry about the other parent, and they were on a plane, and you just saw a plane crashed and then watched another one drop. Odds are, if the other parent was on a plane, they're done. But he was trying to protect her from that, but she's like, don't try and save me from stuff. To Julia Roberts' family, they're on the road. They're going into town. Now, mind you, they plan to go to her, I think they said her sister's house. And that was going to have to cut them through the city. The only way to get there was go through the city, which to me would be untenable. Whatever's going on is clearly going to be the craziest in the city. But they're like, we'll chance it. I think that's stupid. But,
Right.
people do stuff.
Like, honestly, at the amount of time they've taken to figure shit out, we should have seen people fleeing the city.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I kind of suspect they didn't have the budget for more people. After you buy, like, Julia Roberts and Ethan Hawke and, like, Kevin Bacon, you don't...
You can get extras for free.
Yeah, but...
All you need to have is, hey, could you guys run that way? Cool.
Yeah,
now you're in the room.
It's like, I'll pay you in looking at Julia Roberts. One turnaround,
Exactly.
and she's done. But no, they couldn't afford it. Netflix is broke now. I don't know if you heard. But yeah, so they're on the road. No one's on it. And it's sort of strange. Like, the dialogue is just so weird in places, because at one point, Julia Roberts is asking her daughter, Rose, why aren't you sleeping? Because her daughter goes, there's sirens. And she goes, oh, you're awake? Why aren't you asleep? She's like, because of the sirens. I'm like, my answer would have been because we just fled the safe house we were in because you saw a pamphlet written in text you can't read. And now we're going into a place with unknown quantities of danger. Mm-hmm. That's why I can't sleep. But no, it was because of sirens. Anyway, there are sirens going off way in the distance.
Where were the sirens from?
The city?
Was that what that was supposed to be?
City sirens? Yeah, I guess. Okay, no, it's never clarified.
Because they never made it. They never made it anywhere near the city.
Yeah, because they were very distant. Like, you could hear that they was from very far away. But like, as what was the sign? I don't know. Mm-hmm. What were the signs for? Was it a warning to get in the city, get out of the city, stay in your homes, leave your homes, flood warning? I don't know. But anyway, they're driving, and then they come across the next big product placement, which is Tesla. So there's a whole bunch of brand new Teslas all crashed into each other on the road, and it takes the characters, again, should have seen this coming from a mile away, but they have to just wait till the last second to realize that these brand new self-driving Teslas are all just self-driving into each other. Julia Roberts realizes this only from looking at it. Now, I know some people aren't familiar with what a Tesla is, as shown by the myriad of videos of people trying to fill their Teslas with gas at gas stations and people just filming them and laughing. So I don't fault that she wouldn't necessarily know what a Tesla is or what it's capable of or what it's known for.
Okay,
that said,
hold on. The thought just occurred to me that the Tesla self-driving feature would require satellite communication.
Yes, but shut up. So
okay.
with the Teslas all crashed into things on a private satellite communication as these ragtag. Now, mind you, it is expressly stated that they believe that these are a bunch of kind of ragtag fuck off people who were hacking shit. So,
But they wiped out all of the satellites in the world.
I mean, it's not impossible to imagine that with a smart enough group of hackers placed in the right places, but that they'd have their own satellite. It's pretty hard, but that they'd have their own satellite to drive Teslas with is sort of insane. Mm-hmm. In any case, maybe they just blocked out all the other communication, but again, I'm writing the story for them. I won't give them that because it's not a given. If you have something specific to say about how this works, then just say that. So anyway, she sees that they're all self-driving cars and pulls the connection that they are crashing into each other because no one is driving them and they are being forced to do that. And so they're all like clearly off the lot, brand new cars. And so then there is a sequence in which she rushes her husband into the car, and instead of like pulling over to the side of the road because all the Teslas are driving on road to crash into each other, she decides to drive into them, swerving around them. And mind you, they didn't pass any Teslas on the way here. They weren't overtaken by a single Tesla. which would have been an interesting shot to have where like one of them speeds by and they're like, oh, you might hurt somebody. But only after she has the realization do you see another Tesla coming from down the road. And it also kind of begs the question, why are all these Teslas, all white Teslas, by the way, smashed into each other, but the others are so far behind that they didn't even see them as they drove on the road? Like, why wouldn't they all be together if they're from the same lot?
Also, a point of thought, the highway was the only way into the city. Did that highway only go one way?
I mean, it's possible that it was a one-way entrance, like offshoot road. There are those.
Okay, but that would mean that there should be another road leading away from the city.
Yes.
And that they never decided to use.
I mean, maybe they did after they got past the Tesla dodging. If they went back a ways, they probably get like a merge back onto that road. But instead of pulling over to the side, which I can't stress enough how much ample room there was on the side of the road for them to just go stop the car.
Whole car and a half worth of shoulder.
Several. There was lengthwise. There was a road, and widthwise they could have put two of their SUVs on the side of the road and been fine. But then it just shows that there's a whole bunch of cars crashed into each other, which begs the question, are all of these electronic cars sitting outside of this city? Do they just have big-ass Tesla emporiums just in the boonies? And if you're in the city and you want a Tesla, you got to drive out to the middle of bumblefuck nowhere? Anyway, they panic, and they drive back to GH's house. And I would be like, well, look who can't come into my house because it's mine, and close the door.
It would have just opened up one of the many windows.
So they start trying to reason what they just saw. Did this come, did all those cars come off the lot, or is there like is there some sort of bomb that went off that caused them to do this, which is sort of goofy, but they're like, is there a bomb shelter we can go to in these emergencies? What caused this, and da-da-da. And eventually they're like, yeah, well, even if there is in the city, all the roads are clogged because all the dealerships, like if that happened to all the dealerships, the roads are clogged. And I'm like, but if that's true, then that means that there are so many dealerships that have electric cars outside, way outside the city. And I don't know, maybe there are parts of America that's true, but it just seems unlikely in the numbers of cars that we saw piled up. And I mean, we're talking about easy 100,000 cars. 100,000 cars. How many people are driving Teslas? What's the business like? So as they're all thinking about it, the dad just, Clay, the dad, white dad, if you will, decides, hey, everybody, let's chill and just go to sleep. And I'm like, okay. Meanwhile, the daughter is still trying to watch the episode of Friends, and she can't get it. Now, I'd like to point out that unless she has had this tablet on this specific episodes of Friends without ever trying to use her tablet for a single other thing, the only thing that she'd be looking at is Netflix trying to load, or Hulu, or whatever it's on. It wouldn't actually show any of the information because all of that information about what's up and what exists is a part of the online service. So the minute that's cut, it has to refresh it. And as a matter of fact, it may just log you out. I've had that happen too, where my phone doesn't have service and it like goes, oh, there was a connection error, and it logs me out, and then I just have to wait and log back in. So, but for the sake of clarification, to let us understand that she is stressing over watching the last Friends episode, we see her drop her tablet down, and she is on the last episode of Friends, and she can't watch it. And so she's upset about that. This is where we cut to the son trying to fap to the daughter he took pictures of, but he just can't do it because reasons. But anyway, while he's trying to fap to that, the father is filling a bathtub with water because, like, I think that's, what is that for? Is that like a hurricane or something? What's the bathtub water thing for?
So you'll have drinkable water.
No. There's like I think there's like a thing that you do where, like, if you're in a bathtub, it'll protect you from a shockwave or something. I don't know. Anyway, I don't do doomsday prepping. I know nothing about it. I think there's a thing with bathtubs beyond having drinkable water. But maybe I'm misremembering. Because I know there's like the under the desk thing for a nuclear bomb. It won't save anything. It'll make you feel better as you die. There's a lot of prep stuff. But anyway, the daughter ends up talking to Clay, the husband. Well, yeah, the husband, because he's the only one that's married at this point. Other dude, his wife is missing. He ends up talking to the daughter, and she offers her vape pen that's full of marijuana. And they go out and she asks him if he's ever tried to fuck his students, which is interesting based on the conversation she has about him later. And
can I just point out how fucking creepy that scene was, like, where they, like, the movie's so hard trying to pair that Ruth, the daughter, was trying to pair up with Clay, the husband, and GH, the black husband, the black father, was trying to pair up with
Julia Roberts. Yeah,
Julia Roberts' character.
It was making that kind of assumption, but backed it up with nothing.
Yeah. And I was just like, the fuck's going on?
Yeah, and it's strange because it seems to be doing that thing where it's like, oh, maybe, think about it. It's like, think about what, bro? So, she's asking weirdly leading sexual questions and then starts saying that, you look like you get anything you want, even women. And he's like, okay. And I feel like that's relevant to what she says about him later, because I feel like any sort of creep factor you're getting off of him is entirely... There is what in the context of an actually scary movie, there was a scene where, Julia Roberts is for some reason flicking the lights. I think she's trying to find the right light, because there's, a bunch of light switches next to each other. She's flicking the lights, and she turns it on, and all the deer's eye, because there's, 40 deer out in the woods doing nothing, just staring. All the deer's eyes glow, and I'm like, oh, that's creepy. But the movie forgets that if an animal's eyes do glow in the dark, or do reflect in the dark, because they're really not glowing, they're reflecting the light, if the lights are on, which they are, it's going to continue to reflect. And so when she turns on the interior lights instead of the exterior lights, it wouldn't have been as bright, but you would have still seen their eyes in the darkness. In any case, movie was like, ooh, spooky. And I'm like, is this a spooky movie? And the movie's like, no. So anyway, her and GH have a long talk. And to summarize this aggressively long scene, basically they kind of, Julia Roberts and GH kind of go, I like you too. Yeah, we weren't really getting along at first, but we are now. Yeah. And then it's like, yeah, I guess, I really don't like people. Julia Roberts is like, I don't really like people, but I think I like you. That's saying something. And he's like, yeah, I like you too. And then she's like, all right, well, I'm going to go get some more wine. And then he stops her and he tells her the story about how he had a client who, he used to joke about, you and your dark cabal rule everything. And then one day he disappeared and made it seem like he knew something and he got a head start, and that's all anyone could hope for. And no one's running anything. There isn't a dark cabal. It's just no one's in charge, and the wealthy just get a heads up. And they treat this scene like he is telling her that he's the one who turned off the satellites. And it's the most nothing. Because if you break it down, this scene is basically him saying, I have no idea what's going on. I just think it's sus. Okay. He gives her the story in response to her questioning, why did you decide to come back here when things first popped off? Because you said it was because you didn't walk up the stairs on your leg, but I don't think it was that. Tell me why. And he tells her this story in response. And then she ends the whole thing with, well, I don't like you anymore. And he's like, all right, well, I'll win you back over. And he decides to take her down to his music room, which is okay. But before that, the sister talks to the brother, and she's like, I don't know what's going to happen with Ross and Rachel, just to let you know that she's still eager to know what happens on Friends. And the brother's like, bro, go away. And she makes it clear that, she doesn't think it's fair that, well, not that she doesn't think it's fair, but she's like, oh, they make me happy, and we just really want to see this last episode. And her brother's like, well, you're probably never going to see that show again, because he's an asshole. And he's a teenage boy. I don't even begrudge these lines from him. That sounds about right. But he particularly seems to not give a fuck about his sister or making her happy. Also, I don't know what to make of this, right? But for starters, there's a lamp in his room that I assume was already there from GH as an owner of the house, of a naked woman just standing there, tits out, which I'd imagine that's why he picked that room. But more than that, behind it,
which room would that have been?
His bedroom, when his sister's talking to him and asking him about Friends.
No. I mean, in GH's house, whose bedroom would that have been?
In that house, I'd imagine there's 30 guest bedrooms, and that's the one he picked because there was a naked lady in the.
I can't. A grown man whose family consists of his wife and his daughter gets naked women lamps?
It's artistic.
Okay.
We'll just say that.
I mean, I don't know too many wives that wouldn't put her foot up his ass.
I've seen a few that would let it rock just to be the cool person. None of them are black, but I'm not saying that they don't exist. I'm sure there's a black lady out there who would let that fly.
Possibly.
No, I don't.
A black woman with a dog.
I live in Georgia, so I don't know any. But I'm sure there are some that live even in Georgia. I've just never met them. They don't run in circles.
Possibly.
I will not claim to know literally every person on planet Earth, but it's not a thing that I would commonly expect to see. Yeah, you're right.
It just feels rare, and I just think that would have been a much bigger thing if they had led that into being like, this actually isn't his house.
Yeah, it would have been like, oh, it's sort of strange that you have this lamp here. Like, a lot of things would have been more interesting if this weren't actually their house, right? This movie in general. But in any case, what's strange in that is behind that lamp is a box of Apple Jacks, which, why does he have a box of Apple Jacks in his room? Now, there are two reasons he would have it. Number one, he brought it with him from home. Who brings a box of Apple Jacks as a travel snack? And it's a strange thing to do. And I'm not saying you literally can't do it. I'm just saying it's so strange it needs explanation. But if it's not important, why have it? If you don't feel like you need to take any movie aside to have it, then why have it be there? The other option is that he just brought it from downstairs and brought it up into the room and left it there and went to sleep. Why? Why wouldn't you just have a bowl of cereal instead of the whole box? Was he just double fisting the Apple Jacks into his mouth? What's happening? It's just weird choices like that. Yeah, maybe that it's like things like that are just kind of like, maybe we fix that. So the movie goes on to, back to the Clay dad and Ruth talking, and he tells her the truth about what happened with the Hispanic lady. Clearly, he's very embarrassed about it, and the way he frames it, she was in a panic and needed help, and he left her. It's not what happened, but that's clearly how he sees the situation. And, she hears it and then just sort of is like, oh, well, that's strange. And, I mean, in her defense, it is. Yeah. It's just kind of like, you think she'd show up again or something? No.
Nope.
So, he starts saying some things like, what if it's an invasion or a takeover or something like that? And then she's like, you're freaking me out. And I'm like, for somebody who was so quick to be like, I need to know the truth, blah, 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 she's just like, no. In any case, at that point, flamingos appear in the pool. Now, it's raining outdoors, so the flamingos have flown in from where? Fino. Have flown in and landed in the water, and what I'm assuming is a chlorinated pool. And birds do get in chlorinated pools, but you'd think that, after them dipping their bill in there a couple times, they'd be like, hang on. But, they're just chilling out.
Right.
And again, this movie makes this premise like the animals are trying to tell us something. What were those flamingos trying to say? We like pools? You should swim more? Because they're already swimming the maximum amount any people could swim. Next, we cut to GH and Julia Roberts in the music room. And I don't even know how to explain this scene other than I think Julia Roberts must have thought it was cute. It's like, I would say, in the grand scheme of things, this scene is probably the weirdest in the movie. And I say that because it is... Okay, so Julia Roberts and GH are... This is the thing that he said he was going to... Like, I'll make you like me again, right? Because I told you a scary story of how I knew that this was possibly going to happen. And I made you feel bad. So I'm going to take you to my room of vinyls, and we're going to pick something out. And he asked her if she likes jazz, and she's like, jazz is boring. And I'm like, and she's like, well, I want something to dance to. And then she decides, I think, what's the band Next that did Too Close? She picks Too Close. And I want to say the band is Next. An R&B song. And if you don't know it, look it up. Just listen to the lyrics. Give it a listen. And you can understand what I mean when I say...
Yeah, you're right. The band is called Next.
When I say, this isn't dancing music, she was like, I want music you can dance to. This isn't dancing music. This is fucking music. This is music that if you are dancing to it, it is because you intend to have sex with the person you are dancing with. But just of all the things on the shelf, that's what she picked. And mind you, he says that was his daughter's collection when she was DJing, which makes me think that the record would be scratched all to hell, but apparently it's playable. And they play it, and Julia Roberts does her best impersonation of Elaine from Seinfeld. And GH proves that, not all black men have rhythm. It's just not innate. It's something that needs to be learned, because they were both dancing on 2 and 4 and proud of it. And they end up, and I guess you could try and argue that they were both kind of drunk because they were drinking a lot of wine prior to the scene. And, now you just have to assume that they're drunk. And the dance that they're doing has nothing to do with the lyrics that are going on, because Because when they face each other to laugh, I think it's at the line where it's like, I feel a little poke coming through on you. It's like, basically, it's like, I'm aroused so much you can feel it through my clothes. And they're just like, let's hug each other. And I'm like, who was in charge? There are so many songs that you can dance to. It is a literal category of music. And you reached into your fucking iPod Nano and pulled this out? Like, what? Anyway, so, they're kind of like, we danced terribly. And then they hug each other. And then, in a weird way, it just kind of switches to her being like, oh, well, I'm married, you're married, we can't do this, we're a little drunk. And I'm like, okay, so if you wanted to make this be like a thing that evolves into a romantic scene, which by the by, they've known each other for 2 days, and I don't even know that she should fully trust that this is in fact his house. I mean, like, at this point, you may as well just assume it is, but like, not to the point that you'd be willing to, like, I don't know, commit adultery with this person who you still can't identify, because he did not have ID on him. He said he left it at the Philharmonic. You don't know that he is anyone. Anyway, he is kind of like, yeah, I guess, but my wife is dead and all the rest of it. But if you want to do that scene, you just have them work with the song. Like, literally have them both be able to dance to this song. This song would put you in a position where if you were drunk and dancing on someone as you would to this song, then you might have to tell somebody, hey, yo, I'm married. So, in any case, they dance like complete idiots, just completely spaz out, have this moment of we can't cheat on our respective spouses. He says that he believes that his spouse is dead. And then they kind of talk about that, and then Julia Roberts starts making some promises that she can't make over the music. Like, the music gets lower in the scene, but neither of them have turned it down, meaning that they should actually be yelling across the room to each other. Like, they are not close enough to combat the music as loud as it was portrayed to be when they were dancing to it. But that's a minor thing in lieu of the fact that now the sound is back. Yes, that loud sound that brought everyone to their knees is back. It's louder than it was before, breaking more windows, making everybody fall over. It even cracks the screen of Rose's iPad that lets her watch Friends. It's a nightmare. And so then they just all end up, like, the lights go out, and then they light some candles, and then they all end up sleeping in the same bed. And it turns out that the son has a fever as he's going to sleep. And the daughter is like, is he going to be all right? And the mom is like, yeah, he's going to be fine. And whatever. So then the daughter starts a tale that it's like, I grew up in Louisiana. I went to a private Christian school. And the story she then tells is one that I used to hear regularly then. Now, I'm older than the average person, I guess, that would be watching this movie. I don't know. But then again, why would young people be watching a movie with Julia Roberts? Do they know who that is? Anyway, it's a very old joke, at least in Louisiana Christian culture, where it's like, a guy says, like he's prayed his whole life and he's like, God will save me. And then there's a flood. And then, so like in the version that I heard, it was like a guy walks by and says, come on, leave. And he doesn't. And then a guy on a boat comes by and it's like, get on the boat. And he's like, no, God will save me. Then the guy in a helicopter comes by and he goes, no, God will save me. And then he dies, he drowns, and he gets to heaven. And he's like, God, what happened? He was like, I sent a guy in a boat and a helicopter. What else did you want? And that was like the joke. It was like, yeah, sometimes you're just sitting there waiting for God and you're ignoring the signs that he's there. That was the thing that, like, an old joke. But they, again, give you the gravitas, like she is saying something fire that you would have never thought of, right? Like, this is something that the writer was clever and came up with on their own. Maybe it's in the book. I don't know. But they had, the camera's going in and the music's, ramping up and it's getting really tense. And then, she kind of comes to this conclusion that she's not going to wait. And you think, I'll just go ahead and tell you what that means is she's not going to wait to see the ending of Friends. Like, bro, what? So anyway, she tells her mom this whole story. And downstairs in the basement where they are still sleeping. By the by, the family left the house and came back and still gets, like, the master bedroom.
Yeah.
And the brother has clearly vacated the room he was in. So why don't they just sleep upstairs there, or at least have the dad go sleep in there, because he was wanting to sleep on the floor in the room with his daughter rather than just, go sleep in one of the beds or on the couch or anything else. It was strange to me when they first came to the house and they set this up where the father was going to sleep on the floor and the daughter was going to sleep in the bed, because it made me feel like they didn't know who each other were. If it's your daughter and you're not a creep, you can sleep in the same bed as her. You're not going to touch her. She's not going to touch you. There is zero concern. Like, what do you mean? If maybe both of you have to be naked, that's awkward. Like if you're in a snowstorm and something happened, your clothes are ruined. Okay, sleep in separate spots. But even then, like, but you know, like if you, it feels weird to me because he's making it weird. I assumed that they were like special agents or actually the hackers or something because of how distant they were kind of being. But it just turns out that this movie thinks that, you know, fathers should not, no matter the circumstances, sleep in the same bed as their daughters because that's sus or something. But anyway, he ends up sleeping in the bed with her anyway, so it just makes it extra weird. Just like, and also just side note, if you're sharing a bed with someone, don't sleep with your elbows fanned out. That's rude. Bro is taking up like 2/3 of the bed. She's sleeping on her side and is at the very edge of the bed, and he's just fanned out in the dead center. Shit's just, you're getting kicked in the side. That's just my motto. Side kicks until you fix it. Anyway, they sleep in the same bed together. And the daughter then says that the husband, Clay, is strange because she thinks that he wants to fuck her. Now, mind you, the only one who brought up sex in any form was her. What? And, you know, it's like, you know, like he didn't say he wanted to have sex with me, but I know he wants to, and I don't trust him. And, you know, white people aren't trustworthy. I'm like, look, I understand that in some cases, you know, as a black person, you just can't trust white people to have your best interests at heart, depending on the situation, the city or state you're in, just certain situations. Other times, the only people that have saved me from bad situations are white people. So the blanket statement of you can't trust white people, okay. But in this particular case, with these white people, I don't understand where she's like, you can't trust them. Like maybe, I don't, okay, let me see if I can clarify this. What I mean is, I don't know why you can't trust them in this instance because they're white. I don't think their whiteness has anything in this case to do with whether or not you should trust them. You should maybe trust that they will prioritize their children over you, but that's anyone. And but it's sort of weird that he doesn't prioritize his children over theirs. We'll get to that. So, you know, she appeals to him in the night. She curls up in his arms and she's like, hey, you know, it's just you and me. Mom's probably gone. You know, I don't even know why we let him back in the house. It's just us. Like, Mom would have wanted it this way. We should just look out for us. And that's it. And he's like, yeah, okay. He immediately reneges on this. I'll just go ahead and let that go. We then cut to a shot of the Earth from the moon. Why? Because fuck you, that's why. I don't know what it has to do with anything. I think it's supposed to be like, yes, America is crumbling, because it shows the American flag like frozen in space. And I'm like, what, the hackers freeze it? Like it should be just floating out there. And then it's like an eclipse of the moon. The sun to the moon. And I'm like, did the hackers do that too?
Yeah,
What?
that part of it just kind of failed too. Like you could see a rod in the top part of the flag. And I'm just like,
I mean, there is a rod in the top part of the flag, like the one that's hung on the moon. So it'll like stretch all the way out because there's no air, like no wind blowing it or anything. So it'll be all the way out. But it was frozen. Yeah. But it was frozen, and I don't know why. Yeah. I guess it's cold up there, so the whole flag froze. Maybe it does freeze. I don't know. I don't keep track of what the flag does on the moon. But either way, I don't know why that shot exists. What does it have to do with anything? Anyway, Julia Roberts wakes up in the morning. Her husband is standing there offering her some water. Now, their son has been sick all night, but he hasn't tried to wake up their son or check in on him. He just, I guess, kind of leaves it to her. So she rolls over in bed and tries to wake him up. And then eventually when he gets up, he spits out a little bit of blood and pulls out a tooth because his teeth are loose. Now,
was that supposed to be blood the first time?
Yes. Because his gums were also bleeding. It was kind of orange in color, but, you know.
Yeah.
So the problem here is that if you pull out a tooth because you realize that, oh, my teeth feel funny, and you pull one out and you're like, oh, shit. What you shouldn't,
why the fuck would you do it again?
What you shouldn't do is pull out the next 5. And he just keeps doing it. He just keeps pulling his teeth out. And so he's left with one front tooth and like all the front ones are just yoinked. And I mean, in a world where you know that like dentists don't exist anymore, like everything, like you're probably not going to be able to see a dentist ever again in your lifetime based on the way things are going and everyone's treating the situation. Stop pulling your teeth out. Give him a chance to just kind of chill out. So anyway, he's sitting there with a bloody face. They realize that they don't know where the daughter is, and they come to the conclusion. The son says, "Oh well, a tick bit me. You think it's Lyme disease?" And they come to the conclusion, "Yeah, it's Lyme disease." So then they figure, well, we got to get him to a doctor. Of course, you have to get him to a doctor, but I promise you, there is no doctor available. And so the dad GH tries to say, yeah, that there's no doctor available, but Julia Roberts is like, no, my son has to see a doctor because she starts Karening out, as is her proclivity. And he's like, well, I'll do what I can. I'll make sure that your son is okay or whatever. And I guess it's to reciprocate that, Julia Roberts said that she would, nothing would happen to Ruth. But she didn't say she would make sure nothing would happen to Ruth. She just said nothing was going to happen to her. But this guy takes it upon himself to make sure that her son is okay. And this is it's sort of a strange thing because he says that basically their friend, not friend, let's clarify that, not friend, neighbor, Kevin Bacon, had been stocking up on supplies, so maybe he has some medicine. Now, they make the assumption that what they need is antibiotics for what they assume to be Lyme disease. Okay, first of all, there's so many different types of antibiotics. It also depends on your weight and your body makeup, and maybe you're allergic to them. There's all kinds of things. You can't just take antibiotics. They're different kinds. Also, you're assuming that it's Lyme disease because a tick bit him. Could not have been a tick, could not be Lyme disease.
Because they also said the thing in the movie where the sound was supposed to be shooting off some radiation.
Oh yeah, the sound was doing a thing that had caused people. It's the maybe radiation, maybe they said that, but whatever it was a noise in another country that had been tested and people's teeth fell out. So it could be that. So you're taking antibiotics for no reason, and let me tell you, taking antibiotics for no reason, bad news. Bad news for your intestines. All right. So he decides that he is going to go to Kevin Bacon and get help. The dad, Clay, comes back and says, look, I can't find the daughter. She's just missing. And so Julia Roberts starts doing that thing that she does where she starts screaming at people who don't know information until she can get some information. So she just starts screaming. And they come to the conclusion that she must have taken a bike and gone somewhere. So the brother mentions the shed. He's like, well, we were at the shed the other day. That was when he was trying to spook her in the shed. It was like, somebody might be sleeping and watching you sleep, which was nothing but a spook story. And Julia Roberts goes running off into the woods. The brother then vomits blood outside of her sight, but then, both of the dads grab the son and they decide they're going to take him to Kevin Bacon, who is not a doctor. He is a doomsday prepper. They are taking him on the assumption that he might have some antibiotics for what might be Lyme disease. Now, the daughter is like, don't leave me. GH's daughter, Ruth, is like, don't leave me here. You said you weren't going to do this. What about us? What about prioritizing ourselves, etc.? And all valid points, because he's going to be going out into who knows what in order to try and help this kid that may be beyond help. But he's like, I promise I'll be back in 1 hour. That is a stupid promise, number one. Mm-hmm. Any number of things could waylay you. And what are you going to do if he's not? I'd be like, I'll be back when I'm back. But anyway, they sync up their phones. Again, okay, I don't know how their phones have power. They would need to be charged. But, they made it through the night. It was maybe a few hours. The phones are probably like an hour or two from dying at this point. And lucky it was 1 hour. He'll be back in 1 hour before the phone charge dies.
Because their place is the only place that kept power for...
Oh, no. Remember, I lost power last night when the loud noise went off.
Yeah, 3 days in.
Yeah, but, it would have started from then, and they're counting down to now. Mm-hmm. So Ruth just goes and joins Julia Roberts out in the woods because she's looking for Rose for reasons. And so they basically have a conversation, much like Julia Roberts and GH had, where it's like, they come to an agreement. Now, basically, to sum up this entire stupid fucking conversation they have, Julia Roberts starts screaming at a teenager because she's like, you need to help us, and we're going to get in your expensive car and we're going to go somewhere. And I'd be like, okay, first of all, it's my dad's expensive car that we don't owe you shit for. But anyway, she kind of goes off on him. And it's like, my kid's missing and the other one's teeth are falling out and I'm having all this trouble. And she's like, stop yelling at me. I'm a kid. My mom's probably dead and gone forever. And I need her so much right now. And she's gone. Then Julia Roberts, I guess, starts to feel bad that she is in fact yelling at a child who has no control of the situation. And then starts to exposit about how she doesn't really like people and they're all terrible. And it's just, she does the thing that people do when they're like, being shitty about like consumerism, and they're like, yes, everything is evil and all things are consumerism, and I'm like, I'm just trying to buy a video game, bro. I don't have the bandwidth for this. So then Ruth was like, well, I feel the same way. I think people are awful, but there is an upside to it, and I think we can do things for each other, and da 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 da. So they kind of come to this sort of like, we're not so different, you and I moment. And I think it might be a poignant moment in a movie that had anything going on. But anyway, the cameraman decides to get on his little dolly and do flips and tricks and shit because the sound of deer outside has caused everything to go crazy. Now, mind you, they just hear deer running around outside. I don't know why the deer are running around outside. They haven't run around in the case of anyone else, but they're running around outside. Now, again, we start to overlay two scenes at the same time. And we're doing it for a reason I can't possibly understand, other than, again, we're trying to build tension by taping two scenes together that have mild amounts of it to make one big scene of tension, and it doesn't go anywhere, really. Like, nowhere smart. So, we come up on Kevin Bacon's house, with everybody in the car, and we see that there is a girl in the house. And I don't know why we saw that, I guess other than to establish that Kevin Bacon has people with him, but we don't need to. Nothing that happens next is really dependent on him having people he relies on, but, the movie's going to try and bank on it. So, the son's in the back looking all fucked up and with his one little tooth, and they go up to the door, and Kevin Bacon sees him there, and he comes out with a shotgun. And that should tell you all you need to know. He's one of those dudes, he's got a security camera on top of his house, he has an American flag on the front, and I know this will piss some people off, but having an American flag on the front of your house that's in America is sort of wild to me. Like, why? Like, I'm proud of my flag. You can be proud of your flag without buying one. And by the way, there's a whole list of protocols that go with like an American flag, like taking it down when it rains and how you fold it and all the rest of it that no one observes. So like, you care, but clearly you don't care. So like, why are you, do you think that I don't know? Like, do you think I'm going to be impressed? Do you think I'm going to drop by your house and be like, oh, American? Like, it usually is only to denote something very specific, and that's usually why, like, there's, like, a Confederate flag next to it, just to be sure. Like, I like America, but this America, type shit. Anyway, there's, like, a no trespassing sign, on his property. Of course, they are trespassing the fuck out of it, and I'm surprised he didn't just shoot them on sight for that. It was actually kind of nice of him. He has every reason to. And, well, to put it simply, they start demanding drugs from him. At first, it turns out as an ask, and then it turns into a, no, we're not leaving without the drugs. Then it turns into, like, a standoff where GH pulls out the Chekhov's gun we saw earlier. It was being saved for this dumb shit. He pulls out a gun, and he's like, he's not going to shoot me. I'm like, maybe he wasn't, but you've pulled a gun on him, so now you're probably going to get shot, my guy. He pulls out his gun and starts threatening Kevin Bacon and saying, like, you're going to give us this because the boy needs it and we can't leave without it. And then the dad, Clay, jumps in between them and starts making a heartfelt plea of, like, you said you'd do anything for your family, but I'm going to do anything for my family, and I'm going to protect it. I need a you can just imagine the most basic, plea appeal to someone's humanity that you can come up with, and that's this. And he basically just begs the guy to do it. And he's like, well, I can pay you money. And he's like, bro, money doesn't have any value anymore. It's hilarious because at the end of it, when he relents and he does capitulate, he trades the meds for money. And so, they kind of go through this back and forth. Now, while all that's happening, mind you, that whole scene where everything escalates and turns to guns and screaming and all the rest of it, escalates where Julia Roberts and Ruth realize that Julia Roberts realized there are tire tracks leading from the hut. So she's like, oh, I know where Rose, I think her name is Rose. Yeah, Rose. Yes. They call her Rosie, I think. But anyway, he knows where Rose is. She's like, she's out here. And so she runs out and she sees that there's a house, and she's like, oh, she must be there. Why would you think that? Why? I mean, she just sees that there is a house in the general direction of that tire track, so that must be where she is. It's no way that she just went the back way and took a road. Nope, she just had to have gone to that house. It turns out she's right, but that's dumb. Anyway, there's a bunch of deer that appear for the first time to a grown adult. They just stand in front of the house. And this panics Ruth and Julia Roberts. They both panic.
Oh, wait. That's backwards. The house, the deer in front of the shed happened first.
Oh, no, they happened at the same time. It cuts back and forth between those things happening.
No. I'm talking about Julia Roberts and Ruth were in the shed.
Yeah.
They heard the sounds and got scared.
Right.
They sent Julia Roberts out first, and then She started walking, and then the deer came out and surrounded Ruth.
Right. And then she came back for Ruth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
then she found the tire tracks to the house.
No. She found the tire tracks. She found the tire tracks before. I don't think she, at that exact second, had found the house, but I'm kind of skipping ahead on that. She found the tire tracks, and then, Ruth started going like, Julia? I mean, no, she called her Amanda. I don't know, Amanda. She got call Amanda, but whatever. Julia? And she calls her over, and then she sees all the deer, and then they start screaming at the deer. Now, mind you, it cuts back and forth between that and the men screaming at each other while pointing guns at one another. Also, at point-blank range, if a man has a shotgun on you, you've lost that Mexican standoff anyway. This guy's got like a 9mm. It's not happening. He's absolutely boned. Like, best case, you shoot Kevin Bacon. He's like, my arm. He shoots you wherever he shoots you. That's it. You're done.
But honestly, George had his gun first ready because Kevin Bacon had his gun pointed at him, but he didn't have it. He didn't have it cocked.
Yeah, but he waited plenty of time for him to get it cocked, and then it was angry.
Yeah. So. Like, they started arguing, then he cocks his gun while George has his gun cocked in his face. And I'm just like, neither of y'all gotta shoot. Y'all are both a bunch of bitches.
It'd be that way sometimes. So as they're screaming at each other, like, you put it down, I'm going to help. I told this boy's mother I'd help him. And he's like, nah, put it out. And everybody's just kind of going back and forth on this. Julia Roberts and Ruth are screaming at deer. And now you may ask yourself at this juncture, what relevance does this have to anything that's been going on? I don't know. It's not explained. I'll just clarify right now. I don't fucking know. They're screaming at deer, and they're just screaming, and eventually they de-escalate the situation with Kevin Bacon, and the dude pleads and gets stuff, and the deer at the same time decide that, well, fuck, if y'all gonna be screaming like that, we'll just go. We wanted to hang out. Anyway, they get the antibiotics for the kid, and he eats them, and then Clay, the dad, shows Kevin Bacon the propaganda, or the Arabic script that he found on the pamphlets that were raining down from the sky. And Kevin Bacon says that he has a buddy that saw the same thing, but it was in Korean. And so then basically between them all, they exposit that this. So then GH explains what he probably should have explained from the beginning, was that he worked with the defense guy who said that there was like this 4-point or 5-point plan to destabilize any government that was kind of, in that, like the major governments. And it's like, we will disorient them, isolate them, like cut off their communications and stuff, disorient them with like that. I'm assuming that's what the loud noises are. And then we'll let independent actors, so like random terrorist groups, will just be like, gang war, and then they'll just grab the controls of stuff and start taking over, and then America will fall. And that is so fucking stupid as an idea. But, we'll get there. Anyway, they wander through the woods following the tire track. Julia Roberts spots the house, and she's like, she must be there for whatever reason. And then, GH gives this whole speech, and he explains, like, all the shit that is going on, because apparently he could have made this the first thing he said, because it was such a 1-to-1 to the plan he heard to what was executed. But no, instead he told these stories about the time that his client asked money to be moved. And, so the movie is just revealing little tidbits of nothing. So anyway, they're looking, like Ruth and Julia Roberts see the house, but then they're distracted by the sight of the city that they can see from their spot in the woods. And it's just exploding. Just big old bombs going off. Who did that? Is a country bombing us? Did the terrorists blow a thing up? Was it just some sort of fuel reserve? I don't know. But the city is blowing all the way up. It's just done. Meanwhile, the little girl has gone to the house that they thought that she was in, and she's found a whole bunch of food and is just gobbling it down. Were they short of food? I don't know. Was she that hungry? Her mom was shopped right before any of this happened. So they presumably have, at the very least, they have Apple Jacks sitting in the brother's room. But she is eating Pop-Tarts and everything else, and she's just chowing down, going nuts. And then she decides to wander through the house. And Kevin Bacon mentioned that, you guys, this is probably the end of things. You're going to want to hide underground, and there's these other people that have a bunker. You probably want to go and take over that. Now, the way that he said it made it sound like you're going to want to take your gun and go take that bunker if you care about your family. But the little girl is in the house. Rose is in the house. and she's eating all their food, which they didn't bother to take with them. Apparently, they just went out and died or something, or whatever. They haven't been home in days. And she goes down to their bunker, which is not locked.
Maybe they got bitten by ticks.
Yeah. It is not locked, and it does not have like any sort of keypad or anything that like implies that you cannot open it from the outside. It's like, no, you can just go in. And she goes in, and everything lights up, and there's computers and everything else getting like messages.
Those screen that tells you about the radiation.
Yeah, and things like that. And there's a whole computer there, and there's a greenhouse, and there's beds and exercise equipment. It's a whole doomsday bunker. But what it also has, in addition to a stockpiling of food, is a bunch of DVDs. Why the fuck would you have DVDs? I don't know. They take up a ton of space when you can put all the shows that are on those racks on like one hard drive. Anyway, guess what DVD they have? Is it Friends? It's Friends. And then she gets to watch the last episode. And you may say, okay, whatever. Why are you harping on that? Yeah, she and the friends. Let's get to the next part. That's the end of the movie. So,
does the brothers' medicine work? Fuck you. Do those two families ever get along? Fuck you. Do they ever work together? Do they even find the bunker where the girl is? Fuck you.
Was it even a terrorist attack?
Fuck you.
So...
The answer to any question you have is fuck you, because that's what this movie is.
And I kind of have to wonder, like, my question is, was this supposed to be a story about, the downfall of America? Well, if it was very non-specific. It wasn't supposed to be a movie about families coming together. Well, they didn't really come together. As a matter of fact, I think this really probably should have been more of a movie about like Julia Roberts' family coming together, because they seem pretty distant.
And they still seem very distant.
Like, the daughter said that no one paid attention to her. The brother needs help because he's just taking pictures of girls he passes to fap to him. Like, he doesn't know what internet porn is. If you're the type of person to take pictures of girls that you see in the same area as you in an emergency situation to fap to it, I feel like you're the type of person who already had porn on deck, ready to go. And if you did feel bad about fapping to that particular girl, you'd have a backup file, bro. It's hard for me to reconcile those two types of people into one person. The type that wouldn't already have porn on deck, and the type that would take a picture of the girl. It's strange. He didn't take a picture of any of the girls at the beach, apparently. And he had pictures. And he had a picture of his girlfriend, which, by the by, when they were in the car, and he was getting to try and get him the medicine, he mentioned Taylor, his girlfriend, and everybody in the car was like, "Who?" And I'm like, "Who?" But
see, they don't pay attention to him.
What do we think can work here? How do we fix this movie as is presented?
First thing I'm going to need is a sound director, because I don't think they had one.
To clarify, I agree with Rob. The visual aspect and the camera work and the musical choices were clearly the result of a dartboard situation and a cameraman who was given an expensive tool he refused to not use. There was no sense or logic to the way that was set up. So yes, a audio engineer or just some sort of sound person and a actual cameraman.
But as far as story goes, I think they just needed to clarify what they wanted to have as an endpoint, like an actual end, like what's going on here, what's the message that they're trying to send, where they wanted these characters to end up, because I think they were aiming for growth and development on at least the main character, but most of these characters, I don't know where their story arc has actually changed or where anything's actually different for them. It's just something has happened, and then they don't finish the statement. So I would work on what I want my main characters to get from this, how they develop, how they changed, how their situation has evolved. The daughter in particular is literally just watching Friends. Like, she basically isn't even in this movie. She's just watching Friends.
She was trying to watch Friends.
She was trying to watch Friends. And she then watched Friends. Like
The
I have
last
no idea.
episode.
Yeah, I have. It was it the last episode?
It was the last episode. She was trying to watch the episode titled "The Last One," which is the last episode of Friends.
Oh, okay. So she was trying to watch the last episode of Friends. I have no idea what the fuck the deer had to do with anything. How they were even relevant. The deer and the fucking flamingos.
I can tell
Like-
you what the wildlife had to do from a technical standpoint, which was they were there specifically so that when they filmed the trailer, they could show a creepy thing that might make people think that this movie had something creepy in it.
Yeah. Okay. That's even more disappointing because now you just lied to me.
Yeah, it was very clearly a lie.
But
I would say
But, like-
that. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, but I was just saying. Yeah, I want some character development and a place for this story to actually progress to.
Where would you say it should go?
This was so fucking open ended. Like, give me a. All right, we survived this encounter, but we're stuck in this world ending, and I'd feel a little bit better about it. Like they didn't finish the first scenario, so I just want to see them get to a place where they're ready to move to the next part of what's going on in this world, good, bad, or otherwise.
Mm-hmm. If I'm forced to address this film, I like you said, I would absolutely need to be more clear on what I wanted from my characters in terms of arcs. I feel like they had some that they could have at any point like dug in on, but they didn't. All right, so how would I repair this movie? I would first figure out what it's supposed to be. And I don't know. I would decide on something. It's either about a terrorist attack on America and how that creates the downfall of these individual groups. If I were to do that, I would then focus on what happened on the ship, what happened on the plane, what is happening in the city, with just side stories of individuals who I either am with for a brief time or have a storyline running throughout. God, I can't remember the name of it, but there was a show that was kind of like that, but it was about a zombie apocalypse, and I know that doesn't narrow it down, but it was a Netflix show that was about a zombie apocalypse, and it was, in the way that it was filmed, it was interesting, but it did that. It was like following individuals, and sometimes their story would just come to an abrupt end. It wasn't really like Walking Dead, because Walking Dead follows people who are going to live for longer, even if they die in some sort of spectacular way later. They'll live for a while, and then they'll run up against some sort of problem, and they may die to that, or they'll live, and you have like a group whose members may change out, but you're ultimately following the same people, or the same grouping. This was more like, well, we followed this person, and then they died doing this, and we move on. And at the same time that they were doing this, when they ran this way, this person ran that way, and this is what happened to them. And so it would be more that, and it would be more, instead of one family somehow having all these connective tidbits of what's happening, just literally let the audience figure out what's happening and have the characters never know. They're in disarray. But I'm going to different areas and having a bunch of different pieces of information being picked up by the different characters that I'm introducing. So somebody on the plane knows something, somebody on the boat knows something, someone who's working in the city knows something, someone on a bus line knows something, someone who's at the Tesla dealership knows something. Everybody knows a little bit of something, and then it's up to the audience to put those pieces together.
I feel like that's way too high level for this crew.
Yeah. But that's kind of like breaking the mold and making a different movie. If I absolutely, so that's me trying to keep the spirit of, because again, I'm trying to figure out what they want. If I'm trying to deal with there's a catastrophe going on and these two people are forced into close quarters, first of all, I'm probably going to make it to where the black family doesn't own the house. They were just looking for somewhere safe to be because they saw what was popping off. I would have it be more of a tense thing where it could even be, like you could take it a lot of ways. It could be something tragic. It could be something heroic where it's like a tense thing where they really don't mean the family that's in there any harm. You would have to change the dialogue early on because without it being nefarious, they couldn't know as much about them as they did because, you know, GH said, oh, I corresponded to you through email and I know da-da-da-da-da. It's like, no, these people are... If you wanted, and I mean, this would be really offlandish, but if you wanted to, you could make one of them a hacker who would have hacked her files and, you know, known about the conversation between the homeowner and and Julia Roberts, and then use that to kind of gain access to the home and pretend to be who they weren't, and then use that connection to be like, oh, they have some way to contact their fellow hackers through some other gear, but that's like too much bullshit. I would simply say that there are people who are able, like, I think if you want to go into the more specifics of how the hackers are doing what they're doing, you could have a hacker character. But I don't really think that's necessary. If I'm just dealing with these two families, I would simply have it be where he's just trying to find somewhere safe for his daughter to be. They're worried about the wife. They come to this house and then realize through conversation that they don't live here. And they thought that, or they do know who lived there and thought the house was empty, and then just pretend to be the people who live there. And then you would have it be slowly as they talk, with Julia Roberts' character being suspicious as she is. She starts to really kind of pick apart their story and slowly realizes they aren't who they say they are, and immediately makes them seem nefarious, like automatically, because they lied. But as the story goes on, as the son gets sick or the daughter goes missing or whatever, they slowly start to do things that make it to where, oh, we almost can't live without you guys. Like, we need your help. So whoever you are, we need to help you. And so it would kind of cover the family comes together aspect. It would cover the Julia Roberts doesn't come across as such a bitch because at least she's correct in her assessment of the situation. It would help in the kind of nefarious nature of the, this father-daughter combo showing up and being as sassy as they are. It's like, the girl could either be younger and not understand the situation and being way too sassy, or she could be, it could be a part of the act. Like, yeah, of course we live here. It's our house, like a part of that to try and it's not her really being sassy. It's her trying to probe the situation and get them to feel bad enough to let them stay. They could even be workers at the house who knew the scenario and just saw what happened to give some sort of credibility to them knowing at least enough to navigate the house. And you could have it to where they find the photos of the family that actually lives there, and then realize, oh, this isn't them. And you could have a very tense moment with that. And then, you could cut through the tension. You have tools like the loud noise that's going to break through everything that's part of the attack, or, the emergency, like the sirens going off. Those things.
Dare you put real tension in this movie?
Yeah. So it's like you could add all those things to still attach to the exact same idea of them having this go on. And I think it would be a pretty easy thing to implement with exactly the tools you have now. You could adjust it. You could just like move the tick a little bit. You could move the pictures a little bit. The brother's being a creep and he's taking pictures of the girl, and the girl could use that as leverage when the mom starts getting really really persnickety about it, start putting on her Karen hat, and then the sister, the girl's like, oh well, he's taking pictures of me, and you don't let that go, and kind of like when people sort of like deflect the point. It's one of those like, you were cheating on me. Oh yeah, well you didn't take the trash out last Thursday. Like, what the fuck does that? But like just kind of deflect off of the problem with another issue, and just kind of have that be the tension in the household while this whole thing is unfolding. And then as things come to a head, they know about Kevin Bacon up in the area, and let's say they know specifically, you could easily just make the dad a doctor instead of a fucking whatever, a finance guy, and just have him be like, yeah, it's Lyme disease. It needs this specific type of antibiotic. I sold this kind of antibiotic to this doom prepper who, paid me extra money to get his hands on medicines he otherwise wouldn't have been able to get because he's not sick. And that would be an easy link to diagnosis and how we know who has it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, because like trying to make him a finance man who heard through the grapevine that something like this might happen, fuck off. It's so irrelevant. Also, I try and keep all the elements of a thing, but I would pick up the deer and the flamingos and just trash can that whole idea.
Look. You just have to let it. You just have to let that walk by. Because they didn't even. I feel like this was a part of a different movie that they were trying to make, and then you were just like, oh no, we're not doing horror anymore.
I guarantee you it just was meant to be in the trailer because it's exactly like The Happening. The Happening had the same thing. Where in the trailer, you saw a bunch of things happening, right? But nothing happens in the movie. And so when you look, it was all scenes from like shit that happened prior to what pops off in the movie, because nothing really happens in the movie. The only thing that really does happen, like technically, was the guy that got run over by the lawnmower. I think that actively happened while things were quote unquote happening. But all it was there was a breeze that was chasing them and they had to outrun it. That was the whole movie. It was so dumb. It was so dumb. So this is kind of on that same level of something is occurring that you don't really understand, but at least there isn't a hot dog guy to explain what's going on, even though he has no basis in science for why he thinks what he does. I just think that this movie could have used someone who knew how to write. That's always kind of the problem. But yeah, that would be my proposed fix for if you wanted to go the family route. And
honestly, I think the family route's the more
interesting
logical way to fix this story, because I don't think there's enough pieces here to really do the invasion route.
Yeah, to do the America's toppling, because you didn't deal. There are no people. There's no evidence that anything's happened to America. As far as I know, nobody lives in that city. I am sort of mystified by why they would talk about like the destabilization of civilization and then in no way, shape, or form show civilization. The closest you ever saw was a bunch of auto-driving cars crashed into each other. Okay. Where were the people who were like infuriated and standing out on the road trying to figure out where to go? Where was everybody? And it sort of just discounts the people who would be looting or looking for safety or what? Why was no one home? The family that was in the house by the plane crash and the family that had their doomsday bunker, no one was home. The only person who happened to be home was Kevin Bacon.
Yep. Why? Because I don't know.
Because the script said so.
Like, and if they had shown looters, you could go, okay, the looters killed these families and couldn't break into his house, but they didn't do any of that. They didn't do you saw one random person, one Hispanic lady on the street.
Yeah, and even she was portrayed in a way that didn't make any sense. She was just yelling at she was just yelling at him in Spanish, and I'm like, but Spanish-speaking people aren't stupid. They know that the person they're talking to when they can't speak English. So when they only speak English. So they would just use words that they knew because, again, presumably living in this country, however you feel about
pick up a couple of words.
Yeah.
Hell, I picked up a couple of Spanish words. The fuck.
I refuse to believe that she had so little English at her disposal at this point of emergency that she couldn't say anything. But more important than that, honestly, what was she panicking about? What was she?
Don't know.
Because, and I mean, I'm sure.
Didn't think it was important enough.
Well, no. I mean, she could have had a reason. She could have said she could have said anything. I don't speak enough Spanish to understand what she said. I do know. My husband speaks Spanish. I could ask him what she said, but it's not really relevant what she said. My question is, what was happening at that time in the movie that would have meant that she should be that panicked? She was saying rojo a lot, meaning red, so I assume that she was talking about the red pamphlets, but how would she know about them? Did she outrun them? Were they elsewhere? And why was she panicking about red pamphlets? She couldn't read them either. I highly doubt that she came to America but knows Arabic but not English. Oh yeah, my languages are Arabic and Spanish. It's not impossible, but it's unlikely. And she didn't even have a pamphlet to show if that was so important to tell him about, because again, she kept on saying, I don't know what she was panicking about.
She would have literally had to outran a plane.
Yeah, but I'm really genuinely confused about what would have been so scary for her that she was out there just waving him down and screaming and crying, and when he drove off, she was just in tears. It's like, but what was something chasing you? Was there a monster? Did someone try and beat you up? What happened? What do you want from him? Do you want to ride to the next area? And by the by, he is presumably going into town, which she would have, again, presumably come from. What, did she want to ride back to where she's running from in this state? So before, without even knowing what she's saying, I don't think what she said made any sense.
No, wait. Wouldn't he been? No, he was going into town.
He was. Yeah, he would have been heading into town because he had tried every other road. Now, maybe he was so lost he was nowhere near town, but wherever he was going, it was the opposite direction that she was walking. He was going to where she is coming from. So with that level of panic on her, and especially since when he drove away, he went hard that direction where she was coming from.
But that means, that means that she outran the drone to him, not far enough away to fly him down.
I will say that it's entirely possible that it was a different drone. She could have been in the city, and then there was a drone, because drones can only carry so many pamphlets. So, it dumped a bunch of pamphlets, and then the next one came
on the next length of street.
Yeah, and they were just like kind of doing their own thing, and then she just ran away, but it hadn't gotten to the road she was on yet, and now it was on it. And that poor woman is just dead somewhere with a leaflet on her chest.
But if that's the case, then she would. Cause that means she did not run the plane, and she would have had some of those pamphlets. And
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't think pamphlets require that level of panic.
Yeah, exactly what I'm saying. I'm like, I don't know what she could have seen that would have made her that upset, because we didn't see it ever. Whatever it was, well, unless it was deer staring at her, which they didn't do nothing.
Like maybe,
and that seems to be a thing. I can't remember it wasn't Man of Medan. It was oh gosh, there's a horror game that came out, and one of the elements of it, Till Dawn. I think it was called Until Dawn. And one of the elements of it was there were a bunch of deer that just corner you, and it like why? Yeah, it was Until Dawn. And it's just a bunch of deer, and they just show up. Is that like a horror thing? Like deer cornering you and not doing anything wrong? And by the by, if you leave them alone, they won't hurt you. If you stab them, though, if you panic and attack them, they'll like kind of flail their hooves at you and knock you off a cliff. I don't know what it is with horror movies or it's not even a horror movie. With suspense and deer. Because deer are awful, but like, I didn't really have a strong opinion on deer until I started driving across the Bible Belt, like on deliveries. Fuck deer. They are the worst. They are stupid and deserve every hit they get. Any deer on the side of the road, no, it earned it. It had 8 years to know whatever hit it was coming, and it died on its own volition. It gave up on life. Deer are the worst. So I have no idea. This movie was trying to be deep. This movie is one of the few movies that makes me not want to read the book. And I don't really think I could say that for anything. I watched Twilight and thought, oh, the book can't be this bad. Like, this isn't a terrible concept of like a vampire and a chick. Like, it's pretty standard. I mean, it could be done well. And I read the book, and the book was actually worse. But like, the movie wasn't done in such a way that made me say, oh, conceptually, I don't even want to see this executed better. Because it would have to just be a different thing entirely. Because this is a movie that's like, this reminds me of the end of Nia Under 7. So there's an anime called Nia Under 7 where the first half of the anime is setting up this world, and it's got aliens in it, and there are different grades of aliens, I guess different social classes, and there's like, under 7 is the worst. So under like 4 or 3 or 2 or 1, that's good. But under 7, that's just the bottom of the barrel. And so the aliens just showed up on Earth one day from this spaceship that's just crashed way out in the horizon. It's just sticking up out of the planet Earth. You can see it way out there. And a lot of the episodes, the first half of the show is the alien Nia, who is an under 7 alien, hence the name, Nia Under 7, is living in the closet of a college student, and she just won't leave. And so this girl can't make her leave, so she's like, whatever. So she just lives her life with her. And Nia is always teased by all the other aliens. She's always being looked down on. I think there's like an under 6 or an under 5 alien who's giving her shit. And she's like, you're barely above me on the food chain. And she's like, yeah, but I'm not under 7. And there's this whole thing. And so Nia is a very big jokester, right? She's real like goof. And then at a halfway point of the series, Nia hears a call from the spaceship. And then she leaves to go to the spaceship. And the rest of the series follows the college student doing regular college shit. And at the end of the series, Nia comes back. The spaceship disappears, and she looks changed. She looks like, she went from being like a character like Ed to a character like Faye from Cowboy Bebop. Just like, oh, I'm really serious, and it's very real now. And I'm like, what happened on the spaceship? What? So this was about like the collapse of society. This was like, oh man, there's some real stuff going on, and we didn't get to see that. We got to see a little girl looking at deer trying to watch Friends.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even make sense in the context of like, she was trying to get a taste of society. It's like, oh, well, society crumbled, but she was able to still have a taste of it. It's like, what does that mean? Because the entire rest of the movie was telling us that it's gone. What even is the message here? Other than, yeah, computers are really important, and if you get rid of them, bad things can happen, yeah. I think it is a gross underestimation of America as a country, as a superpower, as a necessary part of economies of other countries. I think it is just a complete misrepresentation of Americans as a whole. Yeah, there are probably areas that are going to descend into complete anarchy almost right away. But there are so many aspects of our government that would not. There are parts that would, but there are parts that would not. And they would get a grip on things step by step and pull it back.
Yeah.
I like.
And it would definitely get rough, but like it wouldn't disappear. Like
we're not in the Stone Age, and again, Canada is right there. People would flood to Mexico, and that's a terrible idea because I think Mexico would get up on their high horse, and rightfully so, and be like, no, and just put up a wall. But people would sneak into Mexico. They'd run into Canada. They'd do whatever they had to do to get back to like cozy amenities and watching their TV shows. Simple as that.
Yeah.
People they disappear, and people are like, no, America. They'd stay and stick it out, as every country has. You know, when Germany lost the war the first and second time, people stayed in Germany. It fucking sucked, but they stayed. And now Germany's back to normal and everything's bustling. Like, it's not over. Civilization isn't over. Maybe as you know it, but definitely not over. And hell, for some people, like, again, people living in Amish country, probably didn't change their fucking Thursday.
Didn't even notice.
Okay, so honestly, the earlier ranking I saw for this movie was like a 1.9 out of 5. I don't think it was that. Compared to things we've seen at the bottom of the barrel, like, it wasn't Miss Marvel. It was just...
Okay, but like, here's the thing though, like, this movie didn't have anything for the, I don't want to call them stupid people, but like people who are unaware of what's going on in a movie to go, I like this about. Because this not only does all of the things that we don't like as people who are watching and reviewing these movies, but it also does the thing that people who just want something entertaining, just show me a flash of this. Show me a basic, pretty picture. Don't like.
I don't know. I think there's
like
quite a few
there's
people.
There's nothing here that's...
There's always someone who likes dumb shit, though. There's always someone who will think this is...
and I feel...
There are people who will think this is deep because they don't understand.
Yeah, I feel like all those people are on the movies making team, though. Like, I feel like they're the ones who are like, no, this is so big brain, trust.
So...
And then,
So I know that listeners will have no context for this, but if you've ever seen the movie R100, it was made precisely for this type of situation. R100
is that horrible?
Is a movie about having to deal with directors who make horrible movies, but they love them.
That's the movie you showed me. Was it last month?
Yeah, with the dominatrixes that kept showing up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it is a movie about someone who really is feeling their message and what they think is interesting, but it's not, and everyone else is fucking lost. They're like, why is that in the movie? What is it? Where did that come from? Why do you keep referencing earthquakes? For what? Does it play into the plot? And they're just like, I don't know, it's sort of the reality of living in Japan. And they're like, but why are you, I mean, I guess, but why you keep bringing it up in the movie? So I think like that's why I said like that movie is kind of super relevant. It's why I like it so much. It's because it is how I feel in most of these films where someone's like, oh yeah, the director wanted this, that, and the other. I'm like, but why? Fucking why? Yeah. And R100 is a movie about that. Now I will say, if you're a younger listener, don't worry about R100. It's not for you. But if you're of age, 18 and
license, please stop.
Yeah, you just go ahead and watch it. But yeah, that's a movie about just this exact situation of, oh, you really think you're clever with this, huh? This is really hitting all the buttons for you. And I know whoever wrote this book, if the book is anything like this movie, whoever wrote this book and made this movie thought they were being clever. This seems like the type of thing that Julia Roberts would think is clever. That's why she put her name on it as a production credit. She was like, this is clever. People don't know about this. And we got all the suspense and drama. And I mean, I say this about a lot of people. Patrick Stewart is one of the most ready examples that comes to mind. But actors very frequently are, like, I don't know how to phrase this because it's going to sound insulting, but it's not. That, like, there are two kinds of people, like, generally speaking, when it comes to absorbing stories, right? And there's, like, what I call them is, like, the people who are looking at, like, the fact of the matter, like the builders, like the people who are looking at the building blocks, and the people who are looking at the schematic. It's what's there versus what could be there, right? And a lot of people will be completely enamored on a movie or a game or things off of what it tried to do. because they liked the idea of what it was trying to do so much, and they filled in a whole bunch of the blanks. And and you need those people on your team. You just need someone to tell them when, okay, but that's not there. There's no scaffolding that leads to this area that you're trying to get to. And sometimes
you need that block here.
And sometimes you need the builders to just kind of be like, okay, well, this is how we make that scaffolding to get up there. We can absolutely have that part. We just need to build it up there. And a lot of movie audiences live in that schematic land of not really looking at all the pieces and how they're meant to fit together. They look at the whole picture and they go, oh yeah, you're basically saying this. I like that idea. I agree. And because it's saying something that they agree with, they fail to see all the places where they're just holes in the wall, or where things aren't built up, or where there was no real necessity to this, like, why did you have that scene here, things like that. They're like, nah, maybe that scene didn't matter, but the overall message was da da da. And it's like, and I find that was for people who don't look up, who really thought that movie was something special or had a message. All of the people I've talked to who like that movie are the schematic type. They look at what could be there and they're like, yeah, it said this, that, and the other. I'm like, yeah, but it didn't though. It didn't have any of the scaffolding necessary to really land those points that it wanted to make. I mean, it told jokes, but so does a comedy special. And I mean, dare I say, even a comedy special needs someone to build it correctly. But yeah, so I don't think it deserved a 1.9. This particular movie didn't deserve a 1.9. It wasn't, in the grand scheme of things, that bad, but I can't give it above a D. It doesn't get a C. It is not average.
Oh, we can't go from 1.9 to low.
Like, okay. Let me clarify something. I grade things on the letter scale, but the 1.9 I saw was from Google. It doesn't grade things on the letter scale. But a 1.9 out of 5 is a low for Google. That's basically a F. It's hard. It's a
low F.
Yeah, it is a low F. It is almost impossible to get that score out of Google because people will just give it 5 stars and write whatever about it. I think it's gone up since then. I think it has like a 60, like a 6.6 out of 10 at this point on I think Rotten Tomatoes or something. It's got a higher score there, but the 1.9 was the first one I saw, and I was like, ooh. So I was very kind of had a lot of trepidation on adding it to the roster. But I don't think it's that low. But I will. My personal scale is a C is average. A C is a movie. A C is I went to the theater and I watched something. And it didn't really change my life, and it didn't really make me fold in half laughing, and it didn't have any really super memorable parts, but it was entertaining for an hour and a half or 2 hours. Like I don't feel like I wasted my money and my time. If I had this day to do over again, I would do this to fill that time. Versus a D, which is, you didn't really hit the markers of what makes a movie. Like you didn't fully understand the assignment. You don't understand how movies work and ebb and flow. You don't have the full set of knowledge you need to complete this task you've been given. And F is, how did you find the camera, you stupid fuck? It's like, and to me, there's like an F- category for things like Last Airbender or Legend of Chun-Li or pretty much all of the new phase of Marvel. It's like, it's just a below the floor, like, I don't even know if I should give this a letter grade and dignify it with my attention. And by the way, when I say new phase of Marvel, please understand, I mean from WandaVision forward and some of the things slightly behind it, but definitely WandaVision forward. They are all inexcusably bad. And I can't stress this enough. If you like them, hooray. Congratulations. It's fine. We all like things. But if you think they're good, that's just factually incorrect. So those are two separate categories. There are things that I like that are not good. But
let me change the word good with well made.
Yeah. Well made or crafted, because good is really more subjective. I'm talking about objectively in the terms of what you need to make a thing. And if you say, well, there's no objective way to do that. Well, I have a series on my YouTube channel. It's Exhausted Author. You can go and find out precisely why that's incorrect. We can and should judge art. We can and should judge storytelling. We can and should break it down and really look at what is right and wrong with it. You can't just say something's good if you don't have a metric for what that means. It's like, oh, that movie was good. All right, well then, like if you're just talking about subjectively, sure, say it's good, say it's whatever. But if you're talking objectively and you're like, this movie was well done, this was well made, this was crafted well, you have to have a metric for that. What makes it good? what makes it well made. And whatever that is, something has to be able to fall short of that. If not, no movie's good. They all are. It's literally the syndrome thing of if no one's special, everyone is. But or if everyone's special, no one is what he said. But it's like, this is the same as sentiment of if everything can pass and everything can get explained away, then if you think that anything can be good, then you can't think anything is bad.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. You can't say if you think that, this movie was really well crafted, then you genuinely can't think something like The Room is actually bad. But in any case, this movie I would definitely give a D. I don't think I could be talked into an F, but I would give it a D. It's just it missed the assignment. It doesn't really know. If I'm talking about story. If we're talking about music choice, if we're taking as a whole music choice and filmography, those two drop it to an F, easy for me.
Yeah,
easy. But if I'm purely talking about story, I give it a D. Is like, you have no idea what you're doing. But
this is getting an F from me, because like, yeah, if this movie was made with more than $5 and a dream, then this is an F for me, because with any amount of money, you should like this lacked basic story stuff like. That I'm like, I don't see how you didn't.
Yeah, it does lack a ton, but there
was definitely stuff that's worse.
Oh yeah,
but like
there's just so many flavors of bad. I kind of have to reserve F for those flavors, and it's not that it doesn't deserve an F. It's just that the F is so crowded with shit that's so much worse. D is where it sits.
Yeah, see, now I'm gonna throw this right in the F category. I'll give it the S plus, but it's still an F.
It's an F if I take it as a whole film. If I'm talking strictly off of storytelling, it's like it's a D minus, D minus.
Like it's like they didn't do any character building. They didn't establish stuff.
They did it. It was just sloppy. It was sloppy and very poorly formed. It was Julia Roberts' relationship with the other two characters that weren't her family members.
Yeah,
what it was just sloppy.
But that's all in the schematic. Like, once you get to a finished story, I need more than a schematic or you fail.
Right.
If I give you an outline for my report, guess what I'm getting?
Okay.
An F.
Well, you see, my problem is when I give an F, it means that I don't even see where the schematic was.
Like, if you don't see the schematic, don't even grade it. You just give it back to
I don't see the schematic on Miss Marvel. And I don't...
That's not even a watchable show.
The show was watchable. It was just in the wrong category. I'm talking about... I'm sorry, not Miss Marvel. The Marvels. It's like that movie... Marvels. Yeah, the movie about all the Miss Marvels. So I like that kind of film is where an F sits to me, because I don't even see I don't see what the dream was. I don't see why you built the villain in the way that you did. I don't see why you built the hero in the way that you did. It doesn't fit into anything else around it. What are you doing?
See, your grading is very, very generous. Like, I don't... Like, because like those are the type of generous. They don't deserve to be graded.
Yeah,
if I can't see what you were even trying to do, why would I even bother grading you?
Yeah. See, it's not generous. It's just very specific. It is. If you fall into this category, then you earn this grade. Simple as that. Even if it was the worst version of that I've seen, as long as I can see this, then it gets this grade. Because I do that because there are movies that are really well done. But I don't like them. But they were well done, and I can't let that kind of... Like, I do that to kind of avoid the bias of, but I enjoyed it, kind of bump it up where it doesn't belong. And that's kind of why I have, like, an S+ category of a movie that... Like, because the S category is like in, Japanese games and now American games, where you get a score and it's above 100%, which is impossible, but, above 100%, you did extra well, and it's S and S++. It's this category of, it's not a real thing. It's not a real grade. It's just, man, I liked it so much. For me personally, it sits above everything else. It's an automatic A, but also it had stuff in it that I liked, and I don't give those out often. I would struggle to recall an American movie that had ever made that grade.
An S+ movie. Ooh.
That had ever made it that high in my personal estimation of it.
Yeah, I don't know any S plus.
Like, I know anime that easily hit that mark.
I don't know any S plus animes.
Now and then, here and there for me.
That was an A plus. A plus.
Yeah, but it's S plus for me because it kind of pulled into my specific likes of storytelling.
Yeah, but see, that's what an A plus is for me. Like, you hit all of the marks and you tickled my fancy.
Yeah,
because for me, an A, you did everything correct.
Yeah, we just.
The plus it's for me too.
Our scales are just they're identical. They just slid a little bit to like left and right. It's for me though. I put it in a whole separate category on a golden shelf of glimmering. You know, it's just like this. Like manga, Excel Saga, the manga, not the anime. The manga is S plus for me because it is so specific to my personal love of storytelling, but it's also an A plus. Because it's so good, but because it also kind of tickled my fancy, I gave it the imaginary grade of also S plus. That means A plus is a given. So if you're trying to look for something good, it's that. But if you have the same taste in things that I do, this would be over something else that's just as good, but not in that same vein. But yeah, so our grading scales personally will be a little different. But just to clarify to everybody, it's based off of competency of storytelling. Rob is more likely to throw something deep into a trash can if it's on the level of Marvel, and maybe give it a D if it's like a strong idea that just had a flub in execution. If that's me, then I'm probably, depending on how big the flub is, it might be able to scrape a like a C plus or a B from me, depending. But my scale is C is the median, C is the middle. A C is that's a movie.
I see.
Yeah,
I see.
C is just it's just the middle. It's a movie. So by the time you get to B, you're doing better than average. You're actually saucing it up. That was pretty good. You understand storytelling. And A, like everything in that range is storytelling is a joke to you. It's secondary. Got it. Understood. Moving on. You did something special with that skill. You took storytelling and went to the next level. You were like, I want to do something saucy. I'm going to use my given talent in storytelling to do it. And then S plus, as mentioned, is you did that, but with my personal flavor. And how well you executed it warrants a minus, an A, or a plus. But the S plus only has one category, S plus. It's like, either you get there or you don't. If you fall short, like, A plus.
I don't think I have an S plus category. I think the A plus is my shelf category.
Yeah, for me,
like my shelf doesn't have glitter on it.
Yeah.
It's just a shelf.
Yeah, I have a glitter shelf. For me, a D is you failed. You don't know what you're doing, but you're in the class. You know, it's like you fucked up the homework. You wrote something, but what? F is I don't know what the fuck you're doing. What is? You didn't even turn in any paper. You just went. You just started nailing boards to walls. Like what? Hello? So yeah. So my scale is a little different, but it's more specific in terms of you can, even if I don't like you, even if I hate you, you can still scrape a D from me. You know,
like I mean,
you did try.
I feel like because like all I feel like is I feel like for a D for me, all I'm asking is you complete your schematic and make an attempt at a completed story. Like that's it. If all you give me is a schematic, like
I mean,
it's literally just an outline.
I think this did complete its story. I just think that the ending was it did. Let me correct this. It thought it did. I saw what it believed the final point to be.
Yes, and it was incorrect.
It was trash. But
they were wrong. So,
but I did see where they were like, and ta-da. And I'm like,
yeah, I can't give them that. I can't let them think that they were on the right path because they were not.
A D is not the right path.
Like it's closer to the right path than the F trash can for this movie.
Oh, but again, I'm talking purely of story. If we're taking into account the song selections and the way that they used the music, and then started abruptly cutting it off at places, and the camera, the cameraman who was just taped himself to Jackie Chan in the middle of filming a stunt. Yeah, unreal.
It's so bad. Like I just
So
I need it.
yeah, we'll call it a solid F from both of us, taking everything into account. For me, story wise, it's like a D minus, but everything into account, an F, because the movie is a sum of its parts. And that did not.
You can talk me into giving it a D minus.
Yeah, but it's like, but for me, it definitely falls into F if we're talking all the pieces. But we're just talking story, D minus, I would say.
I just sense so much laziness.
No, I don't detect laziness in this movie. I detect that they really thought they were doing something.
Like, I feel like somebody literally was just like, this is kind of sketch, and that person got kicked out of the room.
You don't work that hard with the camera if you aren't trying to do something, if you don't really feel yourself.
Yeah, but part of doing something is listening to you, just listening to advice, taking in input. And I don't think this person did. I do not think they took in input.
Oh, no. They definitely, I would agree that they didn't, but I don't think that's a part of what these people would define as doing something. I don't think that would even factor in. It's what we would factor in, but I don't think they did. Yeah. And I think that they genuinely believed they were doing the most. Like, I think they really felt like they ate this. They were like, yeah, we got it. And so I feel like they were genuinely trying their best. I see the effort that they put in to make their shots mediocre and confusing. I saw how hard they worked, and I've seen that a lot. Like, I've been to art school, and I've seen people work really hard to make something that makes you go, what are you doing? So it's... Yeah. I think they thought they were being more artistic than they actually were, and confused being artistic with like being skilled or knowing what you're doing. So
yeah, I tried that. I tried that. I got an F for every single thing I did like that. So I will hand out those Fs.
Yeah, I mean, feel free.
I just.
So that leaves us on an F for this film, and we'll have a new one for you next time. And please join us.